Chapter 1576. Just as Xiao helped the Ice Beauty out, Jasper was called away again, saying that Imperial sister-in-law was pregnant. Xiao clapped his hands in surprise. "I'm going to be an uncle again." The Ice Beauty was surprised to see him so infatuated. This guy didn't look like someone who liked children, so why was he so happy when he heard the news? "Aren't you going to congratulate her?" Her subtext was to make him disappear from her sight. She wanted to bask in the sun in peace. However, Xiao didn't catch her hint and thought that she was concerned about him. He thought that his efforts these past few days weren't in vain. So he straightened his voice and said, "I'll go after you into the house. Right now, my sister-in-law's place must be packed with people, so it's not my turn to serve tea." The Ice Beauty was slightly dazed by his words. She had seen Chu Qingyan a few times, and she was very beautiful. It could be said that she had never seen anyone more beautiful than Chu Qingyan in her entire life. What was rare was that Chu Qingyan's personality was straightforward and gentle, and she was not pretentious. She was very easy to get along with, and it was very comfortable to talk to her. It was a pity that this lady had a very clingy husband. Every time Chu Qingyan spoke to Chu Qingyan, her husband would send someone to fetch her. Until now, Chu Qingyan had not spoken much to Chu Qingyan. Listening to Xiao's words, this Chu Qingyan was very doted on in their family. The Ice Beauty couldn't help but feel envious. However, this envy only lasted for a short period of time because the person in front of her started to act stupid again. "Do you think sister-in-law is pregnant with a boy or a girl this time?" The Ice Beauty was too lazy to even look at him. "We'll know after 10 months of pregnancy." Her subtext was, "You idiot, how could I know?" However, Xiao still didn't catch her hidden meaning. He rubbed his chin and began to look forward. "If it's a boy, I'll definitely teach him how to ride a horse, shoot a horse, and martial arts. If it's a girl, I'll definitely hold her in my hands and dote on her. After all, children are so cute. Just like in Kong." The Ice Beauty looked at him with some surprise. It was strange that someone like him, who lived like a big red flower that attracted bees and butterflies, would care so much about children. She didn't want to talk to him at first, but in the end, she said, "Women can also ride horses, shoot arrows, and practice martial arts. They won't be worse than men." Xiao nodded, then shook his head. He leaned against the pillar, chewing on a piece of grass, and smiled. "Although it's good for girls to learn so much, I hope that they can grow up safely and healthily and be loved like little princesses. They don't need to care about the ugliness and hardships in the world, because someone will help them block it. They only need to be responsible for happiness and laughter." When he said this, Xiao thought of his little sister who was killed as soon as she was born. That snow-white and tender little princess was so cruelly taken away from him that he didn't even have time to hug her. His eyes were slightly hot, and then he quickly blinked, hiding the sadness in his eyes. When the Ice Beauty heard his words, she was completely shaken, because what he said was something she had never heard before and had never received before. No one would ever tell her these things. They would only tell her that she had to be well-educated, not so that she could recite poems, but so that she would not be looked down upon. She had to learn martial arts, not so that she could protect her people, but so that she could protect herself at critical moments. She had to learn how to know people well, not so that she could protect her people, but so that she would not let others destroy her family business. It had always been an extravagant hope for her to grow up safely and healthily. No one knew how difficult it was for her to reach this step or how much ugliness she had experienced. They only saw her in bright clothes and holding high power. Who could help her block those ugliness and hardships? Didn't she have to crawl over step by herself? Happiness and laughter, what was that? Was it as sweet as candy? But she didn't need it. Only, there were still some different emotions in her heart. She looked at the person who was leaning against the pillar with his arms crossed. His eyes were flowing with a faint sadness, but his smile was warm. The sunlight poured down on his body, and his navy blue robe jumped with a circle of light, as if it was explaining the word warm, unlike his usual sloppy appearance. This scene was engraved in her memory, leaving a trace. Xiao put away his emotions, and when he turned his head, he saw the Ice Beauty staring at him. He couldn't help but be overjoyed. Could it be that the ice beauty finally saw his handsome appearance? However, he wasn't happy for long. The ice beauty seemed to have noticed his gaze. She looked at him coldly, and then withdrew her gaze as if nothing had happened. "Hey, why are you always so cold?" Xiao Yao finally couldn't help but ask the question that had been in his heart for the past few days. The ice beauty frowned. "What do you mean by that?" Xiao Yao looked at her condescendingly, but he didn't feel any superiority from this height. Instead, he felt that this woman's temperament was outstanding, and her aura was on par with his. He couldn't help but give up the idea of suppressing her in terms of height. He hugged his shoulders and spoke out his feelings. "When I talk to you, you always ignore me. If others don't ask, you never take the initiative to speak. Your expression is cold, and your words don't fluctuate. If I didn't see it with my own eyes, it would be hard to believe that you're really a teenage girl. You always have such a cold face. Don't you think life is boring? Is that so? No one has ever dared to say that to me." The ice beauty's voice was already a little cold. Her cold tone made Xiao Yao a little unhappy, and he spoke without thinking. "I really don't know what kind of environment you grew up in. Usually, at your age, little girls like you love flowers and plants and love to dress up. You're really an anomaly." Xiao Yao's unintentional words were like a sharp knife stabbing into her heart. The ice beauty's expression instantly froze. "You're nobody to me. How dare you meddle in my affairs?" This time, Xiao Yao finally knew that he had stepped on a minefield, but he couldn't bring himself to lower his face and apologize. Seeing that she was really angry, he was a little irritated. He racked his brains and said stiffly, "Indeed, I'm nobody to you, but you were saved by me. I should protect you while you're recuperating." Yin Luo and the other said that a good mood is good for your recuperation. You should smile more, and don't keep a straight face all day. This way, your wounds will heal more easily. The ice beauty's tone was angry. "If you didn't appear in front of me, perhaps my body would recover faster." Xiao Yao opened his mouth to say something, but he was defeated by her cold gaze. In the end, he bowed his head and said, "I'll go boil some medicine for you." Then he left without looking back. The ice beauty looked at his receding figure. She knew that her words were too harsh, but she couldn't control herself. She slowly clenched her fists. Anomaly? This word had been everywhere since she was a child. Yes, she was an anomaly. She was forced to grow up, to become stronger. She couldn't resist, so what could she do? Chapter 1577. When Higashio Motetsu found out that his little lass was pregnant, it was when he came back in the afternoon. When he and Tao Tao entered the door, while arguing, he saw Hua Ling hurriedly walking towards them with a face full of joy. He casually asked him where he was going. Hua Ling could not hide his smile as he told him that his little princess consort was pregnant again, so he had to go out to buy some things. When he received this news, Higashio Motetsu was completely stunned on the spot. He did not even notice that Hua Ling had left. When the little lass gave birth to Xiao and Kong, he was not there and missed it. Now that he finally did not miss it, he felt a kind of joy surge from the bottom of his heart. Tao Tao, who was standing on the side, saw the change in his expression. She thought that he could not accept his beloved woman giving birth to another person's child, so her mood instantly fell. Although she was very happy for Qing Yin, Higashio Motetsu's reaction made her heart fall to the bottom of the valley. Could it be that she still could not win his heart after working so hard? Higashio Motetsu was too happy and did not notice Tao Tao's low mood. He strode towards Chu Qingyin's courtyard, wanting to congratulate her on this good news. And Tao Tao, who had been ignored by him, looked at his back as her emotions became even more complicated. After waiting for a long time, he did not turn back even when he disappeared around the corner. He also did not notice that she had been left behind. Only then did she curl her lips and reveal a self-deprecating smile before following after him. Actually, Tao Tao had misunderstood him. To Higashio Motetsu, he was already used to her following after him. He thought that she would follow after him like every time in the past. When Higashio Motetsu entered the door, he saw that the courtyard was completely surrounded. He could not help but find it funny. It looked like he had come too late. "Little Ting, let me tell you a piece of good news. I'm going to be a grandfather again." Father Chu's sharp eyes saw him and immediately jumped over, his tone full of bragging. He smiled and said, "Yes, congratulations, old master." As soon as Tao Tao entered the door, she saw him smiling so happily. Her heart ached. He would only be so kind to the people around Qingyan. This was the so-called love me, love my dog. There were too many people, and Chu Qingyan had vomited a few times before. Although her mental state was fine, everyone felt sorry for her and asked about her well-being. Higashio Motetsu just stood by and watched. He didn't take the initiative to greet her. He felt that, as a friend, he was really satisfied to be able to witness her happiness. Tao Tao stood at the side and looked at him. Looking at Qingyan, her heart was filled with bitterness. He must be in great pain right now. He couldn't love her, but he couldn't let her go. Higashio Motetsu keenly felt that someone was looking at him. He turned his head and caught Tao Tao's pitiful gaze. He couldn't help but frown. What the hell was this little witch thinking? With that thought in mind, Higashio Motetsu walked over and knocked a chestnut on her head. "Come back to your senses. What's with that look?" Tao Tao didn't feel embarrassed about being caught. Although she felt terrible, she still cared about his feelings. "Are you okay?" He felt strange. "What can happen to me?" "All right, come out with me." Tao Tao thought that he was forcing a smile. She pursed her lips as if she was going all out. "Okay, I'll drink with you." He looked at her suspiciously. Finally, he raised his hand and placed it on her forehead. He muttered, "You don't have a fever. Why are you talking nonsense?" Tao Tao pulled his hand down forcefully. She was unhappy. She had put down her discomfort to drink with him. He thought that she was confused from the fever. Just as she was about to retaliate, she heard him say, "Why are you drinking? Let's go out and buy something." He ignored her and strode out of the courtyard. Tao Tao blinked. Could it be that he was in a bad mood and wanted to vent his anger through shopping? That should be it. Tao Tao immediately chased after him. Chu Qingyan watched the figures leave one after the other through the crowd. She couldn't help but smile. "What's wrong?" Xiao Su noticed her smile and asked. He saw his wife winking at him mysteriously. There's something going on between Dong Ting and Tao Tao. "Oh." Xiao Su raised his eyebrows and didn't comment. Although she was far away and didn't know what they were talking about, from Dong Ting's posture and the way he spoke to Tao Tao, he was no longer as cold and indifferent as before. This was already a huge improvement. However, Dong Ting was like an unruly wind. If Tao Tao wanted to catch him, she would have to put in more effort. Time was like flowing water passing by quickly, especially at the end of autumn and the beginning of winter when the days were long and the nights were short. It made people feel that time passed quickly. On this day, Chu Qingyan drank the nourishing soup that Jasper sent over. She persuaded Big Ice Cube to do something serious and not watch over her all day. In the end, he took his son to the study to teach him how to write. Chu Qingyan finally felt peaceful. Ever since they found out that she was pregnant, the whole family had been mobilized. She felt like a rare animal that was firmly protected. She couldn't stand it. Once she was free, she thought of some unusual things such as Xiao. Previously, he had been asking her for advice. She said that the ice beauty was similar to her big ice block in that they didn't talk or smile. So he wanted to know how she usually interacted with the big ice block. She wanted to teach him how to chat with the ice beauty and expand the topic. She felt that this second brother and the ice beauty he talked about were very interesting, so she taught him some methods. She hadn't seen him recently, so she didn't know if the methods worked. She thought for a while and asked Jasper. Jasper replied, "These few days, second young master didn't go to Miss Sun's room. However, second young master personally took care of Miss Sun's 3 meals and medicine." Chu Qingyan raised her eyebrows. What happened to the two of them? Were they throwing a tantrum? But it was very likely that second young master was having a one-sided Cold War. It had to be said that Chu Qingyan's guess was very accurate. At this time, the ice beauty was sitting in the courtyard basking in the sun, with a servant girl beside her. Previously, that fellow said that there was no one to serve her. He must have been lying to her. This fellow didn't speak much truth. However, he was really unyielding. For a few days, he really didn't appear in front of her again. She was a little unaccustomed to it. Usually, this person would guard her bed when she opened her eyes. If he had nothing to do, he would hang around in front of her and act stupid from time to time. Now, it was other people who came to deliver medicine and food to her. Just because she said a few words, he really didn't come. She felt that this person was too vengeful. However, she also admitted that her words at that time were too harsh. However, she didn't regret it. No one could step on her wound and preach to her. At that time, there was still something wrong in her heart. She couldn't figure it out. In the end, she attributed it to the lack of mental strength after the injury. However, the scenery outside lost its attraction to her. Just as she was about to let someone help her in, there was another person in the corridor. "How is Miss Sun's body recovering?" She raised her head. It was Chu Qingyin, that stunningly beautiful woman. Chapter 1578. Chu Qingyin's appearance came as a surprise to the Ice Beauty. However, Chu Qingyin's expressionless face did not look any different. "Thank you for your concern, Madam Xiao. My body is much better now. I can walk slowly now." This answer was in line with the rules. There was no deliberate closeness or alienation. It was just right. However, it was also this attitude that made Chu Qingyin curious about this girl of unknown origin. This girl's background was definitely not low. Her every movement carried the nobility of a noble. Looking at her appearance, she should have been pampered. However, looking at her hands, there were traces of years of use of weapons. She was not as delicate as ordinary girls. It was hard to imagine what kind of environment this girl was born in for her to be able to combine these contradictions together. When Chu Qingyin came over, someone had already brought a chair over. She sat down and asked Jasper to put the specially made pastry box on the small table. "Try it. It's a new style that the kitchen has developed." The Ice Beauty originally had no appetite. However, when the box was opened, she saw that the pastries inside were different from the ones she usually saw. They were beautiful and fragrant. She couldn't help but feel a little hungry. She didn't stand on ceremony and nodded her head and took a piece. When Chu Qingyin saw her eating, she first took a small bite. She felt that it was good and continued to eat in small bites. Her posture was very elegant. Even though it was obvious that she liked it very much, she only ate 2 small pieces and stopped. It was obvious that she was well educated. Chu Qingyin secretly nodded in her heart. "I don't know where Miss Sun came from and who else is in your family. You have suffered such a serious injury this time. Do you need to inform your family?" Chu Qingyin said with an apologetic smile. "I'm sorry to ask so much. I'm just afraid that your family will be worried if they don't have news of you." Sun Shui shook her head. "It's all right. I came from U.S. City. My parents passed away early, so there's no need to inform my family. Thank you for your concern, Madam Xiao. I'm sorry to have disturbed you recently. Once I've recovered, I'll inform my friends to come and pick me up. At that time, I'll reward you for saving my life and taking me in." The Ice Beauty didn't think much and answered directly. However, Chu Qingyin thought that the other party misunderstood and wanted to drive her away. She couldn't help but feel a little annoyed. She didn't come here for this purpose. She hurriedly said, "Miss Sun, this is just a small matter. You don't have to take it to heart. Rest assured and recuperate here. Moreover, we'd like to make friends very much. I think Miss Sun is very suitable for me, and I really want to make friend with you. So there's no need for any reward. Moreover, we welcome you to stay here for a while." The Ice Beauty felt that she was too enthusiastic. After seeing the people around Xiao Yao, perhaps only Chu Qingyin, Xiao Yao, and Cheng Yinluo were friendly to her. The others, such as Xiao Su, were very cold, as if no one could enter his eyes. However, he doted on his wife very much. On the other hand, Ethereal didn't meet many people. The few times they met, they were very distant. Therefore, she didn't dare to agree with Chu Qingyin's words. However, she was still very envious because there was always a lingering warmth when these people were together. Although it couldn't be seen, it made people feel warm and comfortable at all times. This was something she had never enjoyed before. "Thank you." She sincerely thanked her. "You're too polite." Chu Qingyin thought for a moment and said seriously, "Miss Sun, I have a question that I want to ask you." "Mrs. Xiao, please ask. Are you so polite to everyone?" This was the answer she had been wanting to know in her heart these days because she always felt that this Miss Sun Shui seemed to be in a different world from them. She could see her, but she couldn't touch her. This question made the ice beauty a little confused. Isn't this how people get along with each other? This ignorant look suddenly made Chu Qingyan feel that this girl was not as mature and steady as she looked on the surface. She was a little cute. How should I put it? There are several types of interactions between people. In my opinion, the first type is strangers, which you can ignore or pay attention to. The second type is people who you don't have a deep relationship with, which you can nod your head at. The last type is close friends who can open their hearts to each other. I think that you usually treat people like strangers, so we could be considered the second type. The ice beauty was slightly surprised. She felt that Chu Qingyan was right. It was just that she had always been like this. My way of dealing with people has been cultivated since I was a child. The people around me taught me not to be too close to others, so there may be something wrong. Please forgive me, Mrs. Xiao. It was rare to see such a strict guard against others. However, Chu Qingyan didn't probe further. After all, everyone had their own secrets. She didn't have the qualifications nor the position to pry. Chu Qingyan smiled and said, Miss Sun is too serious. It's just that I really want to make friends with you. That's why I asked. It should be me who asks you not to take offense. For some reason, the ice beauty felt that the woman in front of her was sincere. She felt that if she wasn't sincere, she wouldn't have said so much. She couldn't help but remove the guard in her heart. I'm honored. Looking at her serious face, as if she was talking about an important matter, Chu Qingyan smiled brightly. Miss Sun, why do you always give me the feeling that you don't smile? At the age of a flower, you should smile more. Wantonly, this is youth, isn't it? The ice beauty was stunned. Smile? Since she was young, the people around her had told her not to smile easily. She had to be serious and dignified. Otherwise, she was young and didn't have the deterrent power of a person in power. Therefore, she had pretended to be mature since she was young in order to not let others look down on her. But now, someone told her that at the age of a flower, she should smile more. No one had ever said this to her before. It gave her a strange and wonderful feeling. Maybe it's my nature. She didn't know how to answer this sincere girl, so she could only say perfunctorily. Maybe it was her mission that didn't allow her to live like a normal woman. You should smile more in the future. You're so beautiful. If you can smile, who knows how many men and women, old and young, will be charmed by you. Chu Qingyan joked. The ice beauty thought seriously and said, Then I'd better choose to maintain the status quo. Why? I don't like too many people surrounding me. If they really fall, I'll have to find a doctor for them. It's too troublesome. Chu Qingyan chuckled. These words were really honest. She liked this girl who wore a poker face and told jokes seriously more and more. After the two talked for a while, Chu Qingyan blinked and asked knowingly, All right, we've been sitting here for so long. Why haven't I seen Xiao Yao? Isn't he usually here? Just as she said this, the ice beauty was clearly stunned. Chapter 1579. The ice beauty's reaction did not escape the eyes of Chu Qingyan, who had been paying attention to her. Chu Qingyan snickered in her heart. It seemed that this lady was not completely unresponsive to Xiao Yao. If she was prepared, she could come in handy. The ice beauty regained her senses and replied indifferently. Maybe he's busy with something. Chu Qingyan rubbed her chin, looking confused. Is that so? But I heard from Jasper that Xiao Yao has been locking himself in his room for the past 2 days. Other than brewing medicine for you on time, he hasn't been seen at all. I don't know what's going on. The ice beauty's attention was only on the 2 words brewing medicine. She frowned slightly. You mean to say that the recent medicine was also brewed by him? Chu Qingyan thought that she was touched and immediately nodded. However, the ice beauty muttered, No wonder the medicine is still so disgusting. I thought it was supposed to taste like this. Chu Qingyan's hearing was very good. After hearing this, she couldn't help but want to laugh. So this was Xiao Yao's impression in her heart. It was too funny. However, she still had to say that Xiao Yao was pitiful. Speaking of brewing medicine, this is the first time he's brewed it for someone. In the past, his family was rich, and he didn't have to worry about food and clothing. He had never done anything himself. It seems that he's still very concerned about you. Every time he brewed medicine, He wouldn't leave it behind. I heard that he gave it to someone else to do, so he was worried, so he did it himself. Chu Qingyan deliberately said this in order to give this second brother more points in front of the Ice Beauty. However, these were all true. In the beginning, everyone wanted to mess with Xiao Yao, so they asked him to brew the medicine himself. Later on, they assigned someone to him, but he refused. It was also because of this that Chu Qingyan began to pay attention to the interaction between the two. Hearing this, the Ice Beauty nodded in agreement. No wonder he doesn't know how to take care of people. He's so clumsy no matter what he does. Perhaps it was because Chu Qingyan had a natural affinity. The Ice Beauty naturally said what was in her heart. Chu Qingyan snickered in her heart. Poor second brother, you've worked so hard to do so much, but in front of the Ice Beauty, you've become clumsy. However, she heard the Ice Beauty add in a low voice. But it's not easy for a young master to do this. Although these words were very objective and emotionless, in Chu Qingyan's opinion, it was already very difficult for the Ice Beauty to say these words. It seemed that her second brother's efforts were still somewhat useful. Yeah, it's really not easy. It's rare to see him settle down and do things that he wouldn't normally be able to do. Chu Qingyan paused, then looked up at the person in front of her and asked casually, "Miss Sun, what do you think of Xiao Ran?" These words, if placed in modern times, would definitely feel very familiar to the men and women of marriageable age who had been urged to get married. This was because every time they returned home, their parents, brothers, and aunts would chase after them and ask, "What do you think of someone?" If you said it was okay, then the next sentence would be, "Then you can give it a try. Maybe it's suitable." If you said that you didn't feel anything, then the next sentence would be, "You can give it a try." However, the Ice Beauty had never experienced these things in modern times, and no one would talk to her about these things, so she really thought about this question seriously. Seeing her deep in thought, Chu Qingyan felt that this lady had a very desirable temperament, and that was seriousness. No matter what she did, she was very serious, which was really rare. He talks too much and can't be quiet, but his temperament is still okay. This was the Ice Beauty's final conclusion. Actually, in her opinion, Xiao Yao was very contradictory. It should be referring to her opinion of him being very contradictory. If she said that he wasn't serious, then he was very serious in front of serious matters. If he didn't do things properly, then it depended on what the matter was. Therefore, she couldn't say anything and could only pick out a few problems to talk about. Chu Qingyan could see that her evaluation was somewhat reserved, but it wasn't that she didn't want to talk about it. Perhaps she herself couldn't figure it out. From the looks of it, the Ice Beauty didn't have any good feelings for her second brother. It could only be that she went from hating him to not hating him. Chu Qingyan said softly, "Yes, he's a very active person. Maybe it's because he suffered too much in the past that he tried hard to make his life more interesting and not so dull." Bitter? The Ice Beauty was a little surprised. In her opinion, a person like him who lived a carefree life also had a time when he suffered. It was simply unbelievable. Being curious about a person was the beginning of feelings. Chu Qingyan's eyes flashed with a trace of craftiness, but it quickly disappeared. She nodded. "You can't tell, right? You must be thinking that a rich family son like him definitely hasn't suffered much. It's just that you can't just look at the surface of people. Sometimes what people want to see is just the side that they want others to see. As for the real things, they need time and energy to slowly unearth them. I can only say this much about Xiao Yao. After all, I'm only his sister-in-law, so it's not good for me to reveal too much. But if you want to know, you can ask him himself." Just as Chu Qingyan finished speaking, she saw her big ice block walking towards her. He was clearly walking slowly, but in the blink of an eye, he was in front of her. "I've brewed the medicine for you. Go back and drink it while it's hot." Xiao Su held her hand and helped her up. Chu Qingyan was slightly surprised. "Why did you brew it yourself? I don't feel at ease leaving it to others." Xiao Su nodded slightly to the Ice Beauty, then held his wife's hand and left. The Ice Beauty was originally shocked by Chu Qingyan's words, but when she heard the conversation between the two, her heart trembled slightly. Suddenly, a subtle change occurred in her heart. It was a little complicated, but she couldn't figure it out. She sat from noon until sunset, but she couldn't understand. Or rather, she couldn't figure out Xiao Yao. Actually, what kind of person Xiao Yao was had nothing to do with her. But she had a problem in her heart, so she had to analyze it clearly. Otherwise, she would feel uncomfortable. At this time, the maid had prepared dinner and invited her back to her room for dinner. She raised her eyebrows slightly, suddenly wanting to see Xiao Yao. Leave it. An hour later, the maid brought the medicinal soup. She still said, leave it. 2 hours later, someone couldn't sit still anymore. Xiao Yao hurriedly pushed open the door to her room with a look of anger on his face. His gaze swept across the untouched dishes on the table, as well as the medicine that had already lost its temperature. Finally, his gaze landed on the woman who was sitting upright on the chair with an indifferent expression. He had a feeling of resentment towards iron for not becoming steel. He walked in front of her, restraining his anger, and said, "Why didn't you eat dinner? It doesn't look appetizing." He continued to take a deep breath. "Then why didn't you drink the medicine? It doesn't look appetizing either." Xiao Yao, what she said made so much sense that I actually couldn't refute it. Chapter 1580. The maidservant at the side watched in fear. She felt that it was very likely that the two of them would fight at the slightest disagreement. She was already prepared to run for help. However, the next scene made the maidservant so dumbstruck that she even forgot to retract her leg. Xiao Yao took a deep breath, and the anger on his face dissipated in an instant. He recovered his usual carefree and elegant demeanor. With a clear smile in his eyes, he said gently to the ice beauty, "Since the food doesn't suit your taste, I'll get the kitchen to make it again. Tell the servants what you like. As for the medicine, I'll make another bowl for you." In his words and actions, there was a gentleness and pampering that even Xiao Yao himself didn't notice. She originally thought that this fool would explode in front of her like a bomb, but she didn't expect that it would become like this in the blink of an eye. It was as if she wasn't making things difficult for him just now, but was discussing with him what to eat tonight. Before the ice beauty could react, Xiao Yao had already turned around and instructed the maidservant. Then, he really left to make the medicine. "Hey," the ice beauty subconsciously called out to him. Xiao Yao turned around and looked at her. He corrected her, "Didn't I emphasize to you many times that my name isn't Hey? I have a name." After saying that, he didn't say anything else and quickly walked out of the door. This troublemaker hadn't taken her medicine for more than 2 hours. He had to hurry and make it. The ice beauty looked at his departing figure with a strange feeling in her heart. Her actions this afternoon were intentional. It was also the first time she had done it. Because of her identity and her past experiences, she didn't allow her to do such a thing. Today, she just wanted to lure him out. Perhaps someone would ask, wouldn't it be more convenient and faster to get someone to call him? But she had never lowered her voice. Even though she knew that he was angry with her, she couldn't lower herself to compromise with him. So she chose this method. She didn't need to take the initiative to find him, but could also make him appear himself. But at this moment, the ice beauty suddenly thought that if Xiao Yao didn't care about her and didn't care about her matters, he didn't need to care about her life or death. She became a little confused. She didn't know what the meaning of her actions was. For so many years, she had never done such a childish thing. She had always been decisive and rational. "Miss Sun, where are you going?" The maid's voice sounded anxiously, pulling the ice beauty back to reality. Only then did she realize that she had already walked to the door. "Miss Sun, you should stay in the room and wait for second young master Xiao to come back. Otherwise, young master will be anxious if he can't find you when he comes back." The maid saw that she had stopped and immediately said, "Anxious?" Worried about her? Ever since she was young, no one had ever been worried about her other than her parents. The ice beauty narrowed her eyes and said, "I want to find him." The maidservant's eyes lit up. Could it be that Miss Sun was enlightened and finally knew how to care for second young master Xiao? She quickly led the way. "Miss Sun, this way. Second young master Xiao is in the kitchen." The ice beauty felt that the maid's sudden enthusiasm was a little abnormal, but this was not within the scope of her concern. The two of them turned into the corridor and walked for some distance before they saw the kitchen in the corner of the house. When they arrived at the entrance of the kitchen, the maid asked the chef who walked out, "Where is second young master Xiao?" "Second young master, he is brewing medicine in the back." "I wonder which lady is so lucky to be able to get second young master to personally serve her." The chef pointed in a direction and said with a smile. The maid smiled and looked at the ice beauty behind her. Then, she led her around the kitchen and walked to the back. When the two of them walked to the corner, the ice beauty inadvertently looked over and happened to see that person squatting on the ground without any care for his image, blowing at a stove. At this time, the sky had gradually darkened and the surroundings seemed to be covered with a layer of black cloth. Only the flickering flames of the stove illuminated that serious, handsome face. This scene was completely different from what she had imagined. She had thought that he was just saying it and that he would not really help her brew the medicine. Seeing it with her own eyes, she was even more shocked. The ice beauty suddenly did not dare to go forward and disturb him. The maid wanted to call out to him, but the ice beauty immediately raised her hand to stop her and let her leave first. The maid looked at the two of them and laughed mischievously, looking as if she knew what was going on. Then she skipped away. At this time, a chef walked out with a hungry stomach and a toothed club-like thing in his mouth. He walked to Xiao Yao's side and stretched out his neck to look at the stove. Then he laughed heartily and said, "Second young master, your skills in brewing medicine are getting better and better." "Of course, don't you know who I am?" What I learn. The reply was still Xiao Yao's arrogant tone. The ice beauty muttered in her heart, "Why is this person's words so annoying? Isn't he afraid that others will look down on him?" The chef chuckled, unaffected by his boastful tone. He sincerely raised his thumb and nodded. "It's indeed not bad. All right, your palm was scalded 2 days ago. Are you all right now?" Xiao Yao waved his hand indifferently. "It's just a small injury. It's nothing." That chef nodded and taught a few emergency treatment methods for scalded injuries. Then he walked back with a hungry stomach. After a while, a pair of women's shoes appeared in front of him. Xiao Yao thought it was the maid and said without raising his head, "Wait a little longer. The medicine won't be done so quickly." "It's me." A calm and familiar female voice sounded. Xiao Yao was stunned for a moment before slowly raising his head. White clothes and a beautiful woman looking around. The lights behind her gradually lit up. It was a scene of waning beauty. Nothing could be more beautiful. Fixed in Xiao Yao's eyes, it became the most beautiful scene of his life. Why are you here?" Xiao Yao stood up abruptly and almost tripped over the firewood beside him. Fortunately, he was nimble and didn't let the firewood sweep the stove. The ice beauty stood at the side and watched him tidy up in a flurry. Clumsy. Hearing this, Xiao Yao couldn't help but calm down. He rubbed his forehead. This was how the two of them really got along. He tidied up, patted his hands, and straightened his back. He looked at her openly and asked again, "Weren't you in the room? Why did you come over?" The ice beauty said indifferently, "The room was too stuffy, so I took a walk." The first half of the sentence was true, but the second half needed to be scrutinized. Xiao Yao didn't believe that she could casually walk here. This was the most remote place in the residence. Thinking about how she got angry for no reason before, he had some bold guesses. But when he looked at the person in front of him, he didn't believe that she would do such a childish thing. But for some reason, he still felt a little sweet in his heart. The ice beauty didn't know what he was thinking. She only felt that his expression was a little strange. But he often didn't act according to common sense, and she was already used to it. Used to it? When this word flashed in her mind, she couldn't help but be at a loss. Why was she used to someone who had nothing to do with her? Chapter 1581. The furnace was still sizzling, but he didn't have to look at it anymore. Xiao Yao casually found a step and sat down, his gaze never leaving the furnace. The ice beauty looked at him, sitting on the ground. He didn't put on any airs the young master should have. It was just like how he and Chef were chatting and joking around. She suddenly couldn't understand this person. It seemed that every time she saw him, he gave off a different feeling, although he was always rather stupid. Sometimes what people saw was just a side that they were willing to let others see. This was what Chu Qingyan said but she couldn't help but recall this sentence when facing Xiao Yao. Xiao Yao was just about to ask her to go back first and not stay here with him in the cold wind when he felt her sit down beside him. He was instantly flattered. Wasn't this ice beauty always hard to serve and hard to get close to? Why was she acting so strange today? The ice beauty didn't give him time to think. She said directly, "Actually, you don't have to do something like brewing medicine yourself." With that, she turned to look at him. Her eyes were still as calm as water. Xiao Yao felt that her calm and cold demeanor didn't seem like something a teenage girl should have. He really wanted to tear off the cold mask on her face and see what she was really like. But he knew that he didn't have the right and position to do so. He put his hands behind his head and said casually, "Ethereal said that there are a few ingredients in this medicine that can't be wrong. If there's a mistake in the amount, then your life will be gone. So, following the principle of helping to the end, I'll help to the end. You don't have to thank me. I have nothing to do anyway. Just treat it as something fun for myself to pass the time." If it was anyone else, they would definitely be disgusted by his words. Anyway, it wouldn't leave them with any feelings of gratitude. If she didn't know him well, she would probably think so too. But after spending time with him, she knew that he was a person who said that he didn't care, but would do something very seriously in his heart. "You don't mean what you say." This was her evaluation of him. Xiao Yao was stunned. Then he touched his nose. Why didn't this person leave any leeway for others? "Aren't you the same?" He didn't mean to refute her. He just felt that compared to him, she was more of a person who didn't know how to express herself. But what was rare was that he actually got an answer from her. "I'm already used to it," the ice beauty said indifferently. Then she looked past the eaves and into the sky. This answer carried a desolation and loneliness that did not match her age. It made one's heart ache and want to pity her. This was Xiao Yao's current mood. "I'm curious. What kind of environment did you grow up in?" This was the first time he couldn't help but ask about her past after so many days. The ice beauty lowered her eyes. "It's just an ordinary environment. There's nothing much to say." The rejection was obvious. Xiao Yao was tactful and didn't ask further. He just felt a little disappointed in his heart. "What about you?" Sensing that he seemed a little down, the ice beauty also felt that her answer was too heartless and direct. She couldn't help but take the initiative to ask. Hearing this, Xiao Yao put down his hands, one hand on his knee and the other on his knee, holding his chin. There was a faint light in his eyes. "Compared to your ordinary appearance, I can't explain it in a few words." "Tell me about it," she said. Xiao Yao chuckled. "It's all in the past. There's nothing to say." He wasn't calculative about her not being honest just now, but he really felt that there was nothing to say about the past. Whether it was the shadow of his childhood or the struggle at death's door when he grew up, it was all in the past and buried in his memory. Now, the nightmare was over, and he had started a new life. Suddenly, she felt that he was also a person with a story, and the degree of sadness in it was no less than hers. Just when she felt that she could control herself a little in the future and not be so vicious to him. However, the person she pitied took a bowl of corn and lean meat porridge out of nowhere and put it in front of her with a smile. "You haven't eaten dinner yet, right? Fill your stomach first. Medicine can only be drunk after you're begging." Looking at him acting as if nothing had happened, the sympathy and pity she had for him just now was stuck in her chest. She didn't know whether to go up or down, but her body reacted before her rationality. When she came back to her senses, she had already taken the bowl with one hand, and a spoon was stuffed in her other hand. "You?" She hesitated for a moment, not thinking of what to say. Xiao Yao pointed at himself, his head full of confusion. "What about me? I've already eaten." After his interruption, she finally thought of what to say. "You look so happy every day. Don't you have anything to worry about?" Actually, what she wanted to say was, you can be happy whether you're happy or unhappy. Don't you think it's tiring? Her personality was like a pool of stagnant water, and her life was like a pool of stagnant water. No matter what happened, it couldn't stir up any waves. On the other hand, Xiao Ran was just like her. She was lively every day, unlike her lifeless self. She was always able to discover insignificant surprises in her life. For example, The jasmine in the yard had bloomed. A gopher hole had appeared in the ground. Ants were carrying leaves and running. There were too many to count. She really couldn't understand how people could live like this. Xiao Yao was stunned by her question at first, but then he lowered his eyes and chuckled softly. There's no other way. If you've tried it, when you were 2 or 3 years old, you were locked in a dark room for 7 days and 7 nights. There was no food, no water, and no one to accompany you. It was dark everywhere, as if you were the only one left in the world. When you came out, you would feel that even the sound of the wind and rain was like the sound of nature. The ice beauty subconsciously looked at him, but he had his head lowered. His face was cast by the trees, so she couldn't see his expression clearly. But her heart clenched at this moment. Because you've tasted the darkest silence in the world, you'll be afraid in your heart. You'll be afraid of being alone. So from then on, I'll go wherever it's lively. If I can laugh, I won't cry. If I can walk freely, I won't stay in one place forever. Because I'm afraid. I'm afraid that once I'm quiet, I'll return to that dark imprisonment. I'll be alone. No matter how much I knock on the door, no one will care about me. No one can save me, and no one will save me. It's like you've been abandoned by the world, like a walking corpse. Although his voice was very calm and didn't have any ups and downs, unlike his usual unruly manner, it made people more keenly feel the impact of that experience on him. At this moment, the ice beauty could suddenly empathize with Chu Qingyin's words. You really can't judge a person by their appearance. Chapter 1582. Who would be so hateful as to lock up such a young child and not give her food or water? The physical torture was secondary. The most important thing was the destruction of her spirit. It was simply insane. Even if she didn't starve to death and came out alive, even if she wasn't crazy, she would still be mentally retarded or filled with hatred towards the world. But in front of her, the Xiao Yao she knew from the beginning had never shown any of these emotions. On the contrary, he was more positive and optimistic than ordinary people, as if he always lived in a carefree life. However, only today did she know that he smiled because he didn't want to become cold-blooded. He lived in a lively and prosperous life because he didn't want to return to that period of darkness. Suddenly, she thought that she wasn't the only one who had such a difficult life. But when they encountered the same situation, they adopted a different attitude towards life. She was a little envious. She suddenly wanted to comfort him, but she was the stupidest person and had never done this kind of work before. However, the person who was supposed to be sad suddenly said, "Hey, the soup is ready. Wait a moment. While you're still here, I'll serve it to you." With that, Xiao Yao immediately ran into the kitchen to get a bowl. By the time she reacted, he was already pouring the soup through a wet cloth. The ice beauty suppressed the urge to twitch the corner of her eyes. This person's healing ability was quite fast. However, the Xiao Yao in front of her had a serious expression and his movements were skillful, as if he was doing something extremely important. She actually felt that this person was quite pleasing to the eye. If Xiao Yao knew that his self-proclaimed peerless handsome appearance was only pleasing to the eye in the ice beauty's eyes, he would definitely vomit 3 liters of blood. After a while, the bowl of medicine was in front of her. Drink it while it's hot, otherwise it will turn cold later. However, her gaze didn't stop at the bowl of medicine, but was attracted by his hand. Xiao Yao teased, "I know my hand is very good-looking, but it can't heal your injury. Drink it quickly." As he spoke, he even blew on her hand. He was so considerate. Even Xiao Su, as an older brother, had never seen such a considerate person. The ice beauty pointed at the scar on his hand and looked up at him. "Your injury? Oh, I was accidentally scratched by a tree branch a few days ago. It's not a big deal," Xiao Yao said carelessly. The ice beauty didn't believe him and exposed him. "No, this is a burn." Xiao Yao raised his eyebrows. Today, the ice beauty had changed her character of cherishing words like gold and was actually concerned about him. Could it be that the moon rose from the west? Thinking in his heart, he really went to look at the moon in the sky. All right, it is indeed a burn. He didn't feel conflicted and admitted it straightforwardly, thinking that this way, she would probably feel that he was taking care of her. She thought to herself that this person was quite honest. Who asked you to be so clumsy? If you don't know how to do it, don't interfere. Just let the servants do it. She didn't know who she was doing this for. In the blink of an eye, she had already taken the bowl of medicine. She nodded at him and said, "Remember to apply the medicine when you go back. Although you're a man and don't care about your appearance, your hands are already ugly enough. Don't make it uglier." After saying that, she tilted her head back and drank the medicine. She handed the bowl to him and then turned to leave. Xiao looked at her back and then at the bowl in his hand. He couldn't help but touch his nose. Was she concerned about him just now? However, after a while, the person who said she was leaving came back. Xiao looked at her doubtfully. She said without blushing, "I don't remember the way back." Xiao almost couldn't help but laugh out loud. She was so cold even when asking for help. He was afraid that she was the only one he had met. But under her cold gaze, he stopped himself. Otherwise, the loneliness waiting in front of him would be a cold winter. The next day, Xiao appeared in front of her on time with the medicine. The Ice Beauty's unsettled heart finally calmed down. After watching her drink the medicine, Xiao sat down in front of her and said, "Big brother and sister-in-law are going out for a walk in the afternoon. Do you want to go out with us to relax? After all, you have been recuperating for almost half a month and can walk freely. Walking around will be good for the recovery of your wounds." She thought for a moment and nodded. Okay. Seeing that she agreed, Xiao was happy and immediately stood up. "Then I'll go tell sister-in-law and the rest. I'll come pick you up in the afternoon." After speaking, he disappeared like a gust of wind. The Ice Beauty looked at his back and ripples appeared in her eyes. When Xiao entered the meeting hall, he happened to hear his royal brother and the rest discussing something. According to the news from Water Spirit, half a month ago, the sect master of the Tranquil Moon sect was assassinated and got separated from his subordinates. It's unknown whether he's dead or alive. Huoling opened the letter and read 10 lines at a glance before concluding. Chu Qingyin didn't understand. "I didn't hear Jin Xin say that he went to assassinate the sect master of the Moon Clan. Who did it? The Moon Clan isn't as united as we seem on the surface. Many people want to replace the Tranquil Moon sect, so this should be their enemy's doing," Huoling explained. Chu Qingyin nodded in understanding. Then, taking advantage of this time when the people's hearts are wavering, Jin Xin should be able to pursue the victory. After all, without a leader, it's hard to fight the enemy wholeheartedly. Xiao Su patted her hand and said, "Jin Xin received the news earlier than us. I think he should have taken back half of the Sun Clan's territory by now." Chu Qingyin's eyes lit up. She didn't expect that Jin Xin had already done so much while she was nursing her pregnancy. He was indeed someone she had brought out. Xiao walked over with a face full of smiles. "This is good news. Maybe when sister-in-law gives birth, he will have already returned victorious." Chu Qingyin smiled. "If that's the case, that's even better. All right, did that Ice Beauty of yours agree?" Xiao's face heated up. "What Ice Beauty? Sister-in-law, don't joke around." Okay, I won't say any more." Chu Qingyin and the others smiled knowingly, then said what happened. She agreed. He felt that his sister-in-law's smile was a little strange. Or was he thinking too much? At the same time, on the other side of the town, dozens of people gathered in an alley. The woman in the lead said loudly, "You must find a sect master. Otherwise, bring your heads to see me tomorrow." Yes. After everyone agreed, they immediately split up. The autumn wind swept the fallen leaves, suddenly making it seem a little desolate. And in a corner of the Moon Clan's territory, Water Spirit held a string of bells made of shells and crystals in her hands. She had taken it from a beggar, and it was covered in dust. Her trembling fingers carefully wiped it. When the dust on it was wiped off and its original appearance was revealed, she couldn't help but tremble all over. Tears welled up in her eyes as she held the string of wind bells tightly in her arms. "It's wind bells, it's wind bells. Wind Spirit, are you still alive?" Chapter 1583. It was the end of autumn and the beginning of winter. Although the leaves had already turned yellow and fallen to the ground, giving people a feeling of desolation, The afternoon sun was not dazzling and was very gentle. It poured down on the eaves, trees, grass, and fell on people's shoulders. The dancing circles of light were like small furry dots that shone into people's eyes, making people feel warm. Xiao Su, Chu Qingyin, and the others stepped on the pale yellow light as they walked out of the house. There were already several carriages parked in front of them, waiting for them to get on. The ice beauty walking at the back looked at the carriages and couldn't help but raise her eyebrows slightly. Xiao Yao, who was standing beside her, saw through her thoughts and said with a smile, "Tonight's itinerary is to go shopping. In the afternoon, we will go to the plum blossom forest in the east. I heard that there are a lot of blooming flowers there. It's worth going to take a look." The ice beauty nodded, indicating that she understood. In fact, she had another purpose for going out today. As for where to go, it wasn't that important to her. However, she was a little surprised that this group of people could actually buy such a large house in this place. It was simply beyond her expectations, because in this half a month, she had been staying in her own courtyard to recuperate. At most, she would only go to the kitchen. Today, when she came out with Xiao Yao, she crossed the entire house. Only then did she know how big the house was. Moreover, when she left the house, she also found out that it was located in such a bustling area. Her gaze swept over Xiao, Su, and the others. Only then did she pay attention to their clothes. When she found that Chu Qingyin's shoes were all made of golden silk, she was a little uneasy. This kind of golden silk didn't exist among the common people. Even if it was her own, it was impossible for her to be so extravagant as to use it to make shoes. She once again doubted their identity. "Let's go. Just looking can't replace walking." Xiao Yao stood at the bottom of the steps and teased her. Only then did the ice beauty put away all kinds of doubts and walk towards him. Xiao Su, Chu Qingyin, Higashio Motetsu, Tao Tao, Chengyin Luo, Ethereal, and Xiao Yao, the ice beauty. Except for Xiao Su, who was accompanying his wife in the carriage, the other men were riding horses. However, Tao Tao also led a horse and jumped up. She raised her chin at Higashio Motetsu, not to be outdone. Higashio Motetsu rolled his eyes. He felt that this little witch was really childish. In the end, only Chengyin Luo and the ice beauty were left in the same carriage. As soon as the ice beauty got on the carriage, she began to study the structure inside. She found that this carriage was different from the carriages she had seen before. Moreover, it was even better. Her heart couldn't help but pound. Why hadn't she seen this kind of carriage before? After Cheng Yinluo came in, she saw the ice beauty staring at the walls of the carriage. Her appearance was as calm as water, as if snow had just fallen. Her features were clear and beautiful, and her beauty surpassed that of a fairy. Gradually, warmth appeared in her eyes. She recalled the cold indifference between her eyebrows when they first met. Too much had changed. She couldn't help but think of Qingyin's words. Only a hot fire could melt old ice. It seemed that the initial results were already showing. She couldn't help but take the initiative to say, "Miss Sun, you look good. I guess your injuries are about 50 to 60% better." The ice beauty looked at the carriage seriously. When she heard the question, she realized that there was another person in the carriage. She turned to look at Cheng Yinluo and nodded. "Yes, thank you, Miss Cheng, for your prescription and medicine." Cheng Yinluo smiled. "Miss Sun is too polite. It's our duty to practice medicine and save people. Moreover, it's rare that Xiao Ran is in such a hurry, so we can't just stand by and watch." The ice beauty felt that this group of people was quite interesting. There were husband and wife, superiors and subordinates, and also good friends. She didn't know how they got together and appeared here. "Where are you from, Miss Cheng? You don't sound like a local." The ice beauty intended to get the answer she wanted from this gorgeous and straightforward Cheng Yinluo, who didn't seem to be shrewd at all. Cheng Yinluo's eyes curved into crescents as she smiled. "We're not locals. We came from another place. It's more remote. Many people don't know about it, so there's no need to mention it. It's just a place." She didn't expect her answer to be so watertight. Sure enough, these people weren't simple. The ice beauty said, "Heroes don't ask where they come from. I've offended you." Cheng Yinluo waved her hand. You're too polite. We don't have to be so formal. Just treat it as a casual conversation. It doesn't matter if we're right or wrong. What goes in one ear and out the other. What's important is that we're happy talking. This viewpoint of dealing with people was a little novel. The Ice Beauty found that ever since she met Xiao Yao and the others, she seemed to have opened a magical door. The things and concepts she came into contact with were unheard of. Not only Cheng Yinluo, but people like Chu Qingyin, Xiao Su, and Higashio Motetsu, who she had never spoken to before, all gave her the illusion that she didn't live in the same place. Just as she was in a daze, a plate of pastries suddenly appeared in front of her. Xiao Yao asked the kitchen to prepare these. He said that you don't like sweets, so he asked the kitchen to make some other flavors for you to eat along the way. It seems that he really treats you well. Cheng Yinluo winked at her. There was a hint of teasing in her words, but there was no malice. The Ice Beauty felt that Xiao Yao's actions were superfluous. She had never liked to eat pastries, but since it was already prepared, she would force herself to eat a few bites. Miss Sun, regarding your illness, Murong and I have been studying it. We flipped through many medical books, but we didn't find your symptoms. I wonder if you can provide us with some clues to help us think about it. When it came to business, Cheng Yinluo's attitude became serious. Her tone was apologetic, and she was asking for advice. Because she had already mentally prepared herself, she wasn't surprised at all when Cheng Yinluo mentioned it. To be precise, this illness came from the mother's womb. As soon as the Ice Beauty said this, Cheng Yinluo knew that her and Murong's judgment was wrong. Some doctors said that this illness will affect a person's lifespan. So when my mother was pregnant with me, she didn't have much time left. Later, she gave birth to me and left. As for the rest, I'm afraid I can't provide any clues. Cheng Yinluo looked at the woman in front of her and said in a very calm tone. If she didn't know, she would have thought that the woman was just telling someone else's story. She thought to herself, what kind of hardships did she go through to have such a pair of indifferent eyes? Cheng Yinluo reached out and patted the back of her hand, comforting her. It's all right. It's up to the person to succeed. We'll study it according to the clues you provide. In this world, there's no illness that can't be cured. Even if we can't, there are others. The Ice Beauty looked at the sincerity in her eyes. Something seemed to flow in her heart, prompting her to nod slowly. Outside the carriage, Xiao Yao's raised hand paused in midair. He couldn't believe what he had just heard. He stared blankly at the carriage as it passed by him. Affect her lifespan? She was still so young. How could it be? Chapter 1584. Seeing Xiao Yao in a daze, Ethereal rode up to him. Second Master, what's wrong? Xiao Yao had already retracted his hand, but he was still in a daze. When he saw Ethereal, it was as if he had seen his savior. Ethereal, no matter what, you and Yinluo have to find a way to save Miss Sun. Ethereal was confused, but seeing that Xiao Yao was not joking, Ethereal nodded and made a promise. No matter what, Yinluo and I will do our best. Xiao Yao was slightly relieved when he thought about how Pang Zhijing was so badly injured that she could have gone to the gates of hell. In the end, she was still rescued by them. At this moment, Ethereal smiled and asked, Second Master, are you moved by the mundane world? After Xiao Yao heard clearly, he patted his shoulder in annoyance. What nonsense are you talking about? We're lagging behind. With that, he whipped his horse and chased after them. Ethereal shrugged and followed closely behind. At this time, Tao Tao, who was riding on a horse, looked at the person in front of him who was leisurely swaying back and forth. A wicked idea came to his mind, and he whipped his horse. As expected, the horse was frightened and immediately began to gallop wildly. Higashio Motetsu did not expect her to do this. His eyebrows twitched as he steered the horse. He tightened his grip on the reins and quickly made the horse obedient. He turned to look at the instigator, fuming. You did this on purpose? Tao Tao nodded generously. Yes, I did it on purpose. What did you do to me? Higashio Motetsu had the urge to tear her apart after doing something bad and provoking him. You've got guts. Chu Qingyin, who was in the carriage, couldn't help but laugh when she heard this. Wasn't it all because he had spoiled her? You didn't answer me when I called you just now. Tao Tao looked like a displeased baby. Higashio Motetsu was so angry that he laughed. I have to hand it to you for this lousy reason. You teased me when I didn't answer you. Are you not going to chase me down if we break off our friendship tomorrow? Unexpectedly, Tao Tao really touched his chin and considered the feasibility of this matter. This is not impossible. Higashio Motetsu felt that communicating with her would make him faint at any moment. Forget it. A good man did not fight with a woman. He did not want to argue with her, so as to avoid losing his dignity. But a certain someone couldn't stop for even a moment. Once he stopped, she immediately came back again and rode her horse to his side. Come, let's have a competition to see who gets there first. How about it? Benefits? Higashio Motetsu raised his eyebrows. He was really a person who always talked about benefits. Tao Tao despised him in her heart, then crossed her arms and said, the loser will be at the mercy of the winner. How about that? Higashio Motetsu glanced at her. It seems that you are very confident in your riding skills. Of course. How about it? Do you want to compete? Fine, let's do it. Who's afraid of who? But you better be prepared to cry. Stop pretending to be a hero. We'll see soon. The two of them stood side by side on the road. When the password was given, the two of them were like arrows released from bowstrings, flying forward quickly, raising a cloud of dust and fallen leaves. The ice beauty sat by the window, just in time to see the two of them leave like the wind. She couldn't help but calm down for a while. At this moment, Chung Yinluo's laughing voice sounded in her ears. These two are like a pair of enemies. Wherever they go, there will be a lot of noise. Enemies? The ice beauty was puzzled. Chung Yinluo retracted her gaze and looked at her. Qing Yin said that the ice beauty had a high IQ but an extremely low EQ. She was afraid that she was not enlightened about the feelings between men and women, so she didn't feel anything when Xiao Yao took care of her. She couldn't help but feel a little sorry that Xiao Yao met this ice beauty, so she took the trouble to explain. This pair loves and hates each other. Tao Tao is eccentric and doesn't play by the rules. She is not interested in anything, and her favorite thing is to pester young Master Daunting. Young Master Daunting is unruly and doesn't like to be restrained, so you can imagine how they usually get along. The ice beauty nodded, but still asked, but I see that although they are noisy, they are quite harmonious. Chung Yinluo smiled when she heard this. This person's observation skills were not bad. She nodded in agreement and said, you are right. Although young Master Daunting seems to be very impatient on the surface, if you look carefully, you will find that he is accommodating Tao Tao in all aspects. But maybe the two of them didn't notice. They didn't notice? The ice beauty was even more confused. If anyone noticed, do you think they would still be in such a hazy state? Chung Yinluo winked at her, indicating that her knowledge was still shallow. The ice beauty was stunned. There were so many ways to do this. It was not as simple as the 5 elements and 8 trigrams. She wasn't someone who liked to pry into other people's affairs, but these people were too mysterious. She didn't know if they would affect the Yu clan, so she couldn't pry too openly. She could only beat around the bush. However, the results she obtained along the way seemed to be useful, but it was useless. The ice beauty didn't know if these people really had no problems or if they were too good at hiding. If Chu Qingyin knew what she was thinking, she would probably find it funny. It was true that they were in opposition to the Yu clan. However, it was also true that they were here in the name of having fun and didn't interfere in the war between the Sun clan and the Yu clan. Therefore, it was normal that the ice beauty couldn't find out. Time passed in the midst of chatting and fooling around. Soon, the group arrived at the intersection of the plum forest. Everyone dismounted and got off the carriage. As soon as the ice beauty landed, she saw Xiao Su carrying Chu Qingyin off the carriage. Do you think that the two of them are very compatible and very loving? Chung Yinluo also landed and looked in the direction of the ice beauty's gaze. The ice beauty nodded. I thought that he was a cold-hearted person, but I found that when he was facing Madame Xiao, he seemed to become a different person. The way he carried her off the carriage was very gentle, like the wind caressing a feather. Cheng Yinluo chuckled. The ice beauty looked at her in confusion. You are wrong. He's always been like this. It's just that Qing Yin's appearance brought out the gentleness in his heart. Have you heard of the tenderness of an Iron Man? That's what it means. After Cheng Yinluo's explanation, she seemed to understand. But since it's the first 3 months of pregnancy, why is she out and about? Isn't it more dangerous? Because someone spoils her to the heavens. If Qing Yin hadn't wanted to go out and walk, Xiao Su wouldn't have let her go out. However, Xiao Su only made this decision after he understood her physical condition. This second child was much more stable than the previous one, so it was good for her to walk around. At this moment, Tao Tao walked over with a dejected look on her face. When Chu Qing Yin saw her dejected look, she couldn't help but laugh. Didn't you go to the horse race? Why do you look so bitter? Did Dongting bully you? Tao Tao looked at her pitifully and opened her mouth to complain. However, she suddenly thought of something and could only say, meow meow. Everyone was confused when they heard this. What is going on? Chapter 1585. Chu Qing Yin was confused by Tao Tao's meowing. She was amused and concerned. Tao Tao, what's wrong with you? Is your throat uncomfortable? Tao Tao still replied, meow meow. She sounded more aggrieved than before. Just when everyone was confused, a low chuckle attracted everyone's attention. They all turned their heads and saw Higashio Motetsu leisurely walking over with 2 horses with a smug smile. When he walked to Tao Tao's side, he glanced at the little witch who was angry but didn't dare to say anything. He was in a very good mood. This girl lost. The bet is that she can't speak human language today, only cat language. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone was suddenly enlightened. It turned out that this was a new idea that this pair of enemies had come up with. It was really interesting. Thus, everyone held their wives' hands, enjoyed the flowers, and took a stroll. One after another, they dispersed, as if what had just happened was just an extremely small ripple in life. Before Chu Qing Yin was led away by her big ice cube, she sympathetically shook Tao Tao's hand. It's unfortunate, but there's nothing I can do. Enjoy your meow life today. Bye. Watching everyone go away, Tao Tao felt depressed, but she had nowhere to vent. She could only stare at the person in front of her. It was difficult for him to ignore such a burning gaze. So Higashio Motetsu turned around and raised his hand to press her head down jokingly. Of course, he controlled his strength well. She couldn't break free easily, and she wouldn't get hurt. Why are you staring at me? Are you unwilling? You can blame yourself for not being as good as others, but you still want to challenge others. You have to accept it even if you don't want to. After saying that, Higashio Motetsu let go of the little witch who was dancing with joy. He led their horses and found a place to tie them up. Tao Tao rubbed her head and watched him leave. She stomped her feet and followed him. Meow, meow. Translation in cat language. Higashio Motetsu, you're not a man if you win against this girl. Higashio Motetsu patted the sawdust on his hands and responded with a chuckle. You picked the battle yourself. You have to complete the bet, even if you have to kneel. This is your choice. Tao Tao was furious. Meow, meow. Translation in cat language. Do you know what it means to have tender feelings for the fair sex? Can't you give in to me? Higashio Motetsu picked his ears and took a step to the side. He was almost deafened by the little witch. What are you talking about? I don't understand. Tao Tao's mouth twitched. This guy really knew how to pick a problem. She did not understand. She rolled her eyes and continued to walk forward, meowing nonstop. Cat translation. Higashio Motetsu, you're such a stingy bastard. You're the ugliest among all of us. However, she had only taken a few steps when she felt a chill on her back. A voice that sounded like it was gnashing teeth came from beside her ear. What did you say? Say it again. Things weren't looking good. Tao Tao prepared to flee. Chu Qing Yin inadvertently turned her head and saw Tao Tao's feet being lifted off the ground by Dong Ting. Although she didn't know what they were talking about, she found it interesting. Big ice cube, the weather is so good. She turned her head and held the hand of the person beside her. She couldn't help but sigh. Xiao Su looked up. There were no clouds in the blue sky. It was indeed good weather. These flowers look very strange. I've never seen or heard of them before. Xiao Yao followed the ice beauty on the flower path. His gaze fell on the flowers and plants on both sides. He couldn't help but sigh. The ice beauty's footsteps paused because of his words. She turned her head to look at him. There was a strange emotion in her eyes. You mean you don't recognize these flowers? It's normal. Even if I'm knowledgeable, there are so many flowers in the world. I can't recognize all of them. Xiao Yao answered naturally. He didn't notice that after the ice beauty heard his answer, an inexplicable emotion flashed in her eyes. Although these flowers were a bit expensive, they were the most common flowers in the Re clan. It wasn't to the extent that he couldn't recognize any of them. Could it be that he wasn't from the Re clan, but from the Yu clan? Xiao Yao didn't hear her speak for a long time. He couldn't help but look at her in confusion. What's wrong? Are you not feeling well? No, let's continue walking. Looking at the delicate person in front of him, Xiao Yao had the illusion that a gust of wind could take her away. He immediately stepped forward and walked to the side of the wind. Sometimes, people inadvertently or subconsciously do things that are the truest thoughts in their heart. Because it was only the beginning of winter, the plum blossoms hadn't bloomed yet. However, there were already flower buds. It wouldn't be long before they could see the proud plum blossoms bloom alone in the cold. The ice beauty stood under a plum tree, giving people a cold illusion of standing proudly. Like the cold plum blossoms in the cold winter, proud and unyielding. The plum blossoms in the forest hadn't bloomed yet, but she had already become the scene of the ice plum blossoms in the forest. Not far away, Xiao Yao held his breath and couldn't help but stare blankly. The ice beauty under the tree felt Xiao Yao's gaze, but there was no killing intent or hostility. So she let him go. She might have gotten used to his gaze. On her left were Chu Qingyan and Xiao Su. The two of them were sitting on a blanket spread out on the ground, drinking tea and playing chess. They were in a leisurely mood. On her right, Cheng Yin Luo and Ethereal were looking at a medicinal herb on the grass, studying its effects. It was a very interesting game. And not far in front of her, Higashio Motetsu was being pestered by Tao Tao to have a rematch. The whole process was interspersed with different lengths of meow meow, which made people not know whether to laugh or cry. She realized that since she was young, she had never been so carefree. She didn't admire the flowers or look at the sky, nor did she carefully observe the interactions between people. At this moment, she felt as if she had walked into the smoke and fire of the mortal world, the simplest and most leisurely life of the common people. Looking at the blue sky above her head, the lush greenery in front of her, and the laughter not far away, she could even hear the sound of chess pieces being placed. She suddenly had an illusion, as if the past 10 years were just a dream, and only what was in front of her was reality. At this moment, a figure walked into her line of sight. Xiao Yao walked slowly in front of her with his hands behind his back. He restrained the anticipation in his eyes and coughed softly. I had nothing to do just now, so I casually made something for you. Under the icy beauty's indifferent gaze, he felt as nervous as when he had handed his homework to the teacher. He took a deep breath and then took out the thing hidden behind his back. It was a garland made of 3 or 4 types of flowers. It was very beautiful, and from this alone, it could be seen that he was a very aesthetic person. The icy beauty was a little surprised. She wasn't surprised by the garland he gave her, but by why he would give her something for no reason. Xiao Yao held it in front of her. You can wear this on your head. Girls like it very much. She followed her heart and said, I don't like to wear this. Xiao Yao's outstretched hand froze in midair. It was the first time he had been rejected like this. However, he didn't care about his face, but that she didn't like it. This made him feel somewhat disappointed. The icy beauty saw the light in his eyes extinguish in an instant, and her heart suddenly felt a little strange. Just as Xiao Yao was about to awkwardly withdraw his hand, a white and clean hand suddenly took his garland. Although I don't like to wear it, thank you. The light in Xiao Yao's eyes lit up again, and he couldn't help but laugh foolishly. The icy beauty looked at the garland in her hand and was worried. This fool, didn't he know that 2 types of flowers would increase the fragrance of the flowers and attract bees? He didn't know these flowers, but he still dared to casually pick them. Sigh, what a headache. Chapter 1586. The air in the plum forest was fresh and the scenery was beautiful. Thus, Chu Qingyan decided not to join in the fun on the streets and planned to stay here for the afternoon. Xiao soon naturally agreed that the little fellow didn't want to go to those crowded places. Cheng Yinluo and Ethereal found a lot of herbs in this grassland and decided to stay and collect them. Thus, only Xiao Yao and the other three were left to go shopping at the night market. However, because Higashio Motetsu and Tao Tao were competing on horseback, they soon lost sight of them. Thus, in the end, only Xiao Yao and the Ice Beauty were left. One was riding a horse, and the other was sitting in a carriage. At this time, the sun was already at the top of the mountain. In another hour, the sun would set. The golden light poured down from the top of the mountain, covering the mountains, fields, and roads with a faint layer of golden gauze. Looking from afar, the maple leaves dyed the whole mountain red. It was so red that it gave people a feeling of infinite vitality. Looking closer, in the fields, there were tenant farmers carrying hoes and preparing to go home for dinner. The fields were lively and made people feel comfortable living. The Ice Beauty leaned against the wall of the carriage. Through the small window, she saw a scenery that she hadn't seen or paid attention to in the past 10 years. The sound of horse hooves and the crisp sound of the bell hanging on the horse's neck rang rhythmically. She came back to her senses and looked sideways. Beside the carriage, Xiao Yao was sitting on a high horse, holding a leather whip in his hand and playing with it easily. The smile on his face was soaked by the setting sun, and his facial features couldn't be seen clearly. She felt that his whole body was emitting a soft light, giving people the illusion that the world was stable. She was absent-minded for a moment. Along the way, Xiao Yao's mind was half on the road and half on the Ice Beauty. When she looked at him, he noticed it and turned to look at her. He saw her looking at him without blinking. He didn't notice her strange expression and thought that he had finally charmed her with his handsome appearance. He felt happy and couldn't help but start to pose on the horse's back, pretending that he didn't feel her gaze. However, when the Ice Beauty saw him putting his hand to his forehead in deep thought, stretching his arms as if he was flying, and lifting his cloak coquettishly, she felt that it was an eyesore. She didn't know what was wrong with this person, so she immediately retracted her gaze and no longer looked outside. Out of sight, out of mind. After Xiao Yao did all the positions he could think of, he turned back with a smile. However, he didn't expect that the curtains of the carriage had already been drawn. He was a little regretful. He didn't know if the Ice Beauty had seen all of his heroic actions on horseback. The carriage leisurely swayed to the street. At this time, the sun was about to set. Xiao Yao handed the reins and the carriage to the servants, and then walked towards the bustling area with the Ice Beauty. Seeing a restaurant not far away, Xiao Yao stopped and asked her, "We've been playing all afternoon. Let's go have dinner first. When it gets dark, I'll take you to the night market. What do you think?" The Ice Beauty had no objections. "Up to you." Thus, the two of them stepped into a restaurant filled with guests. The enthusiastic waiter immediately greeted them. "Dear guests, would you like to eat or drink tea?" Xiao Yao said, "Let's eat." "All right, please come in." Xiao Yao looked directly at the stairs and prepared to go up to the second floor. It was quiet upstairs. He could still chat with the Ice Beauty, and no one could disturb him. However, at this time, the Ice Beauty's gaze landed on the guests on the first floor. She said to Xiao Yao, "Just find a place to sit downstairs." Since the Ice Beauty had spoken, he didn't have any objections. He asked the waiter to find a seat by the side, and the two of them went over. The waiter began to ask what dishes they wanted to order. Xiao Yao adhered to the principle of women first and asked, "What do you want to eat?" The Ice Beauty said indifferently, "Anything." Xiao Yao raised his eyebrows and turned to the waiter. "Anything?" The smile on the waiter's face froze. He said bitterly, "Dear guests, you must be joking. What kind of dish is this? This little one has never heard of it." Xiao Yao looked at the Ice Beauty with some difficulty. "I don't have this dish. Why don't you change it?" The Ice Beauty face-palmed. Was this person pretending to be stupid? You decide. She had strict requirements for food. When she was young, she had also eaten tree bark. It was fine as long as she could eat her fill. Xiao Yao asked the waiter with a face full of curiosity. Do you have this dish? The waiter's face turned even more bitter. We don't have this either. Dear guests, can you order something that we have in our restaurant? Xiao Yao immediately turned to look at the ice beauty. This time, he didn't need to speak. The ice beauty took the initiative to say to the waiter, just give me 3 simple dishes. The waiter heaved a sigh of relief. He nodded and prepared to go down to the kitchen to prepare. However, the male guest sitting next to him caused trouble again and called out to him. The waiter asked carefully, Dear guests, do you have any other orders? Xiao Yao smiled and said, bring up all the signature dishes in your restaurant except for the seafood. Also brew a pot of good tea. Be quick, my lady can't starve. The waiter immediately agreed. When he turned around, he wiped his head. Oh my God, these two are here to show off their love. After the waiter left, the ice beauty frowned and looked at Xiao Yao. There are only 2 of us. What she meant was that it would be a waste to order so much. Xiao Yao understood her meaning and said indifferently, since we're out to play, we should enjoy ourselves to the fullest. Enjoy the beautiful scenery, taste the delicious food, go out happily, and go back happily. Don't worry and eat boldly. Order whatever you want to eat. It's my treat. Looking at him acting like a local rich man, the ice beauty wanted to facepalm. So you didn't want me to order just now? Hee hee, you saw through me. Xiao Yao didn't feel embarrassed at all. He laughed happily. The ice beauty couldn't help but facepalm. As expected, he came out to be funny. The tea was quickly served. It was osmanthus tea. Before it was poured, the fragrance wafted out, making people feel relaxed and happy. Xiao Yao first poured a cup of tea for her, then poured a cup for himself. He picked up the teacup and sniffed it. With a face full of enjoyment, he said, fragrant. The ice beauty's attention was all around. The reason why she was sitting on the first floor was because there were all kinds of people below. It was the best place to gather information. But before she could hear anything, she was attracted by Xiao Yao's intoxicated expression. Drinking tea and eating, to her, was just to quench her thirst and fill her stomach. But for some reason, to him, even the most mundane things in life seemed to be extremely important to him. Every single thing was treated with utmost seriousness and devotion. You should also try a mouthful. The taste is really good. It should be made from freshly bloomed osmanthus and then dried. Xiao Yao saw that she hadn't taken a sip and couldn't help but urge her. Seeing him looking at her so sincerely, the ice beauty couldn't help but raise the teacup to her lips. However, she was stopped halfway. Chapter 1587. Looking at the hand in front of her, the ice beauty raised her eyebrows. What is this guy trying to do? Xiao Yao met her somewhat impatient gaze, but still persisted. In any case, she had been glaring at him all this time, and he was used to it. You have to smell it first, and then drink it. Drink it in 3 mouthfuls. Only then can you experience the beauty of it. The ice beauty was puzzled. Isn't this drinking wine? Xiao Yao's face didn't turn red and his heart didn't skip a beat. This is how I drink tea. The ice beauty really wanted to twitch her eyebrows like the waiter, but under his earnest expectations, she still did as he said. This was because she knew that if she didn't do as he wished, he wouldn't stop pestering her. This would affect her ability to scout for information later. As soon as she drank it, he leaned over. How is it? It tastes good, right? She reluctantly nodded. Her mind wasn't on it just now, and she didn't taste anything. At this moment, the waiter served the dishes one by one. She thought to herself, now that there's food, it should be able to shut his mouth. However, she was still too naive. Xiao Yao looked at the table full of dishes as if he had seen something new. I've never seen these dishes before. They're so white and tender. If they're not made of tofu, what are they made of? The ice beauty didn't understand what tofu he was talking about. She looked at the dish. That's a kind of fruit pulp. You can eat it as a dish. Xiao Yao felt that it was very novel. It was the first time he had seen such a fruit. Then, his gaze was attracted by another dish. What is that? Scarlet thorn. It's a kind of animal that lives deep in the mountains. It tastes delicious. After the ice beauty answered, she saw that he was about to point to the next dish. Her head hurt. This guy was probably going to be endless again. Thus, she made a prompt decision to call the waiter over and let him be responsible for explaining. It was rare to meet such a rich customer, so the waiter did his job diligently. Not only did he start explaining the ingredients, he even explained the steps of frying, and frying. It was an endless stream. However, for Xiao, who had studied delicacies, it was simply a feast. The two of them went back and forth and began to talk. The ice beauty heaved a sigh of relief. It was finally quiet. However, perhaps even she herself didn't realize that she was a person who couldn't be disturbed by anyone in the past. Now, her mood was affected by Xiao. This change was shocking. At this moment, the discussion around her also entered her ears. Have you heard? The sect master of the Tranquil Moon sect is missing. A burly man dressed like a pugilist said softly to the people at the same table. What? Missing? His companion was surprised. He's been missing for more than half a month. I heard that the Tranquil Moon sect has been covering up this matter. But don't I have a friend working in the Tranquil Moon sect? I've heard that they've already sent out 5 groups of people to search for them. It can't be wrong. The big man had a confident look on his face. His companion asked again, why have you been missing for so long? Wouldn't that be beneficial to the Japanese? That's right. The Japanese have a very brave and skilled leader. In less than half a month, they will fight their way here. The Yu clan is retreating, and I'm afraid they won't be able to defend against the Japanese. Furthermore, there's no news about the sect master. Perhaps he has already been. The burly man made a throat-slitting gesture. His companion was so scared that he immediately drank a mouthful of wine to calm himself down. The ice beauty narrowed her eyes and turned to listen to the conversation on the other side. An old man whispered, do you know? Our Sunflame sect's young sect master has returned. A middle-aged man dressed like a scholar immediately followed up. I heard that this time he brought a lot of helpers. In just a few days, he's already taken back 5 cities. It's simply godly speed. That's right. I heard from those who were lucky enough to see the young sect master's heroic appearance a few days ago that he's extraordinarily handsome and has boundless strength. He defeated a city guard in one move. Too powerful. Another slightly younger man, who was also dressed like a scholar, added. His face was full of admiration. The old man held his chest and sighed, the heavens have eyes. Chasing away those bastards from the Yu clan, the day of the Japanese is just around the corner. At another table, there was a group of hot-blooded youths. They drank wine and ate meat. They were very forthright. Some said that after finishing this meal, they would go to the front lines to support young sect Master Murong and do their part for the Japanese. The Ice Beauty felt that these people were exaggerating, but after hearing so much about how many cities of the Sun Clan had been taken back by the Sunblaze sect, it was clear that the young sect Master Murong Yinxian lived up to his reputation. A faint light flashed in her eyes. It was different from her usual indifference and calmness. It seemed like she was looking forward to it, and also seemed like she was excited. Murong Yinxian, I've finally waited for you. At the same time, after Xiao and the waiter finished chatting, he found that the Ice Beauty hadn't eaten a single bite. His face was full of surprise. Why haven't you eaten? There's so much delicious food in front of you, and you're actually indifferent. Your mental fortitude is too good. As he spoke, he picked up some food with his chopsticks and said, this is the wild mountain vegetables that waiter mentioned. It's very nutritious. The Ice Beauty looked at the extra food in her bowl and frowned. I'm not particular about food. Hearing that she was making do, Xiao immediately became a gourmet. How can you not be particular? You know that in this world, other than sour, sweet, bitter, spicy, and salty, there are many other wonderful tastes. This is a feast for the taste buds, a collision of taste. Just based on this tender bamboo shoot, it's not as simple as just frying it in oil. Before it's fried, it has to be soaked in salt water. Only after it's infused with the flavor will it be put into the pot. Without this step, the feeling of eating it will be different, and you won't be able to experience the taste of biting off your tongue. The Ice Beauty was speechless that he was so particular about food. Although she didn't say it, Xiao Yao could still guess a little. He shook his head and said, I know you're afraid of trouble, but I can give you an example. For example, if we go to the next town, we can reach it by boat or by carriage. But walking and taking a carriage will waste time. And secondly, we won't be able to see the beautiful scenery on the river. Then, people who know how to appreciate the scenery will choose to take a boat. They can also reach the next place and get a better visual enjoyment, so why not? When it comes to eating, it's the same principle. If it can make us eat better and happier, although it's different, we can choose a better way. These words made the Ice Beauty a little startled because he was right and she couldn't refute it. Do you think I'm very talkative? Xiao Yao raised the corner of his lips at her. The Ice Beauty nodded. You are indeed very talkative. Even eating can't stop your mouth. Xiao Yao gave her a bright smile. I can't help it. My purpose in life is to travel all over the world and eat all over the world. After all, to me, only freedom and delicious food can't be let down. It wasn't just his smile that was too dazzling, it was also his words that shocked her too much. She had to admit that at this moment, her heartbeat was a little irregular. Chapter 1588. Xiao Yao was a meticulous person. Perhaps it was because he had suffered too much when he was young, causing him to be very meticulous in his food, housing, and clothing. However, there was also a reason. In that power struggle, he had listened to his mother's teachings since he was young. In order to not be targeted, he acted as if he was ignorant and incompetent on the surface. He didn't reveal anything and strived to be a person on the edge of power. In other words, he was commonly known as the second-generation ancestor, a person who couldn't be helped. Sometimes, after pretending for a while, he would get used to it and enjoy this kind of role. Later, when his imperial brother ascended the throne, Consort Yu's faction fell and the entire imperial court was rebuilt. He could finally let go of everything and no longer live so tirelessly. However, he really pursued good food, wine, and beautiful scenery. Perhaps it was because he hadn't found a goal to fight for in this life, so he said that he temporarily placed his hopes on mountains, rivers, and delicacies. That was why such a person would say that only freedom and delicacies could not be let down. The Ice Beauty was the exact opposite. Perhaps it was because she hadn't been free since she was young. In addition, she had too many burdens on her shoulders. Every day, in addition to dealing with those cunning old foxes, she also had to think of ways to consolidate the power in her hands. Every day, she was so busy that even breathing was an extravagant hope. How could someone like Xiao Yao have such enlightenment? Perhaps it was because she had never obtained it or thought of it. So when Xiao Yao said that long speech, other than feeling unfamiliar, she also felt yearning. Yearning and desire for the unknown. When she felt her sudden thoughts, the Ice Beauty was suddenly stunned by herself. As a person in power, the last thing she should do was to have too many personal feelings. Otherwise, it would affect her judgment when making decisions. Since she was young, she had been taught to be a heartless person. How could she have so many strange thoughts? While the Ice Beauty was in a dilemma, Xiao Yao was eating in big mouthfuls. He felt that this was not bad, so he picked up a piece for the Ice Beauty. When he felt that another piece was delicious, he gave her another piece. So when the Ice Beauty was about to move her chopsticks, he found that her entire bowl was full of food. The person opposite her even took credit and said, "Look, I'm so considerate of an injured person like you. Next time, when your wound recovers, I'll give you some seafood. Hurry up and eat." This was because eating seafood wasn't good for the recovery of sick and injured people. If he was the one who was injured, he probably wouldn't be so particular about it. However, the Ice Beauty was a lady after all. It wouldn't be good if she had a scar. The Ice Beauty had a serious case of mysophobia. She hated it when others touched her things, let alone put food in her bowl. But for some reason, when she saw Xiao Yao's eager gaze, she pouted but didn't say anything. She lowered her head and ate quietly. Xiao Yao even put food in her bowl from time to time. When had Xiao Yao ever done something so tender and considerate? Even when he was hiding among the flowers in order to avoid being noticed, It was only others who fawned over him. When was there ever a time when he would stick his face close to them? Now that he did this, it was natural and he was willing to do it. After the Ice Beauty finished the food in her bowl, she stopped the rash guy from adding more dishes. She had already made an exception and eaten too much today. After Xiao Yao confirmed that she was really full, he began to sweep the entire table. Under the Ice Beauty's dumbfounded gaze, he finally put down his chopsticks. This meal really made him happy. When it was time to settle the bill, the Ice Beauty looked at the table full of leftovers. She couldn't help but have an additional impression of Xiao Yao, a rice bucket. If Xiao Yao knew her evaluation, he would probably cry out that he was wronged. He was just discussing business with his royal brother at noon and couldn't make it for lunch, so they ate dinner together. After eating and drinking their fill, the two rested for a while and walked out of the restaurant. Xiao Yao wasn't very familiar with this area. After all, he met the injured Ice Beauty as soon as he arrived in this town. These days, he was only concerned with taking care of her and didn't come out for a stroll. However, when he came into contact with the bustle, he became excited. Xiao Yao turned his head to look at her and asked, "Where do you want to go? Or rather, what do you want to buy?" After asking, Xiao Yao realized that the person standing beside him wasn't thinking about him at all. Instead, she was staring at a place for a long time. He couldn't help but curiously follow her gaze. He saw a few young people wearing masks playing around. There was nothing special about it. Just as he was about to say something, the Ice Beauty retracted her gaze and spoke. "Let's go to the clothing store in front." Xiao Yao nodded when he heard this. She should also add some clothes, so he brought her into a clothing store called Leisurely Clothing Pavilion. If Xiao Yao looked back before leaving, he would find that the place was already empty. As soon as the two of them entered the store, a lady boss came up to them. "Which of the two guests wants to buy clothes?" Xiao Yao pointed to the person beside him. "Take a look for her. Take out all the beautiful and expensive styles." "All right." The lady boss smiled and nodded at the Ice Beauty. The two of them secretly exchanged glances. Not long after, the lady boss took out nearly 10 sets of clothes for the two of them to choose from. "These are the clothes with the best workmanship in your store?" Xiao Yao glanced at them and asked. The lady boss hurriedly said, "Of course. Seeing that the two of you are extraordinary, I took out the treasures of the store. If you don't believe me, young master, take a look at our quality and then look at our style. You will know what to do." Xiao Yao raised his eyebrows and didn't say anything else. In this kind of place, to be able to take out such clothes, he really couldn't be picky. Thus, he muttered to himself and picked out 4 or 5 sets of clothes from the dazzling array of clothes. Then, he let the Ice Beauty try them on. The Ice Beauty didn't even look at them and directly went inside to change her clothes. The lady boss immediately carried the clothes and followed in. There was a place to try on clothes inside, so Xiao Yao sat outside and waited. He leisurely crossed his legs and closed his eyes to rest. Inside, when the Ice Beauty stood in the middle of the room, the lady boss, who was full of smiles, immediately closed the door. There were also 4 or 5 young men and women in the room. If Xiao Yao was present, he would definitely discover that these people were the people who were playing with masks on the street. They faced the Ice Beauty and knelt down without a word. This subordinate greets the sect master. "We came late to rescue you. Please punish us." In order to prevent others from hearing them, they lowered their voices but still carried a solemn and respectful tone. Their voices were powerful and full of self-reproach and guilt. The Ice Beauty looked at the subordinates kneeling in front of her and was a little dazed. It was as if this period of peace and leisure was just a dream. Her face still had a calm and indifferent expression, but it was a little more dignified. That's right, she was the person in charge of the Yu clan, the sect master of the Serene Moon sect, Gongsun Shui. Some time ago, she was assassinated and led a wandering life here. Today, she left the manor and came here to re-establish contact with her subordinates. Chapter 1589. It happened so suddenly, and I was careless. Don't blame yourself. Get up. Gongsun Shui said calmly. There was no point in looking into the past. The most important thing now was the matter at hand. Qingyu and the rest stood up. What's the situation now? Gong Sunshua didn't waste any time and went straight to the point. Qing Yu stepped forward and reported, "We found out who's plotting against you. It's Elder Su. He's in cahoots with the commander of the guards. That's why he attacked you when you were out." Gong Sun Shue's eyes shone with a cold light. "Elder Su? Haha, looks like my sister can't help but want to make a move on me." She had a cousin called Gong Suanfei. Elder Su was her grandfather and was someone who wanted to support her to take her place. "Let's keep the matter of finding me under wraps for now. I want to see what else they can do." She planned to use this opportunity to get rid of the parasites around her. Qing Yu and the rest heaved a sigh of relief. Since their sect master had a plan, they were confident. Gong Sunshue remembered that Xiao Yao was still sitting outside and spoke quickly. She had to end this quickly so that he wouldn't be suspicious. "Now, let's talk about the current situation of the Sun and Moon tribes." Everyone's expression turned cold at the mention of this. Xiao Qi didn't dare to delay and immediately replied, reporting to Sect Master, "The Ri clan has found young Sect Master Murong Yinxian. Right now, they're taking back the Ri clan's territory with lightning speed. In a few days, they will attack the Ri clan's town. Once the town is captured, our stronghold in the Ri clan will be destroyed. At that time, the Ri clan will be taken by Murong Yinxian." Xiao Tong immediately followed up with anticipation. "Sect Master, the current situation is very unfavorable for us. Do you want to return to the stronghold to take charge? Show the Sunblaze sect who's boss. Take them down a notch." They felt that the reason why their people were retreating was because their sect master had gone missing at this critical moment. No one had mobilized the troops, resulting in the current situation. They couldn't help but resent Gong Suanfei and Elder Su. They could have picked any time to cause internal strife. Did they think that without their sect master, they could replace her and stabilize the situation? In the end, they still threw the stronghold into chaos. They couldn't do anything right. There's no rush. Everyone was stunned by Gong Suanshue's words. How could the sect leader say that she wasn't in a hurry? Then what should he be anxious about? Seeing the confusion in her subordinate's eyes, Gong Sunshue raised her hand and gestured, "Let's wait until the Ri clan is at our doorstep. This time, Gong Sun Fei and the others will definitely make a move. You guys keep an eye on them. Once they make contact with someone or mobilize someone, immediately report to me." She had long suspected that they were colluding with the people of the clan, but she had never been able to find any evidence, so they had repeatedly brushed past her. This time, as long as they made a move, she would get the evidence. At that time, no matter how much they struggled, it would be useless. Knowing that their master had an idea, everyone immediately nodded in agreement. Gong Sunshue thought of someone and asked, "Where's the high priest?" Green Jade replied, "The high priestess is still in seclusion. She doesn't know what's happening in the outside world." Gong Sunshue nodded. "Since the high priest hasn't come out yet, let's not let him know about this for the time being." Qiao Feng asked curiously, "Then when will the sect leader go back?" Since the sect leader had ordered them not to show up on the street, it meant that the sect leader didn't want to reveal her identity for the time being. That was why Qiao Feng asked, "I'm not sure for the time being. Also, I found something strange that I need you to deal with." Speaking of this, Gong Sunshue subconsciously looked at the door that was tightly covered by the curtain. Although she couldn't see the scene outside, she could still imagine how the people outside were leisurely waiting for her to try on the clothes. Her heart suddenly sank, and a hint of determination appeared in her eyes. "I want you to investigate the identity of the man who came with me and the people who came with him. During this time, I will still be living with them, so arrange a person for me to pass on information." Although they didn't know what the sect leader was thinking, Green Jade and the others agreed without hesitation. In their opinion, no matter what the sect leader did, she had her reasons. Before letting Green Jade and the others leave, Gong Sunshue specially reminded them, "These people are not ordinary people, so you have to be very careful. Don't let anyone find out." When only she and the lady boss were left in the room, she turned and said to the lady boss, "It's been so many years. It's been hard on you to stay here and gather information." The lady boss was originally a spy under the US sect. Later, She was arranged to guard this stronghold in the Sun race's territory to pass on information. Usually, she heard that the sect leader was cold-blooded and didn't know how to sympathize with her subordinates. Now that she saw it, she wasn't like the rumors. The lady boss said in fear and trepidation, "This is what I should do. Sect leader is too serious." Gong Sunshue didn't say anything else. She didn't know if the fool outside was getting impatient. She waved her people away, took the clothes, and began to change. She had to admit that Xiao Yao had good taste. The clothes he picked were not only suitable for her, but also suited her temperament. She couldn't tell that the fool had such good taste. When Gong Sunshue walked out, she immediately saw the man playing with the fan. His face was still relaxed, without a trace of impatience. She had spent at least half an hour in there, yet he was still so patient. It seemed that there was something to be proud of. If Xiao Yao knew what Gong Sunshue was thinking, he would probably be overjoyed. To him, as a well-educated noble, this kind of patience was essential. Moreover, it was this otherworldly ice beauty in front of him. He could afford to wait, and was willing to wait. The moment the curtains were lifted, Xiao Yao heard the commotion. He walked over with a smile and asked, "How was it?" Gong Sunshue picked up one of the white lotus-colored clothes. "This is okay." Xiao Yao nodded, then said to the lady boss, "Other than the one she mentioned, this one, and this one, pack them all up." Gong Sunshue stopped him from taking out the money and emphasized, "This is the only one, and I usually only wear white." Looking at the slender, snow-white hand in front of him, Xiao Yao shifted his gaze back to her determined face and chuckled. "It's precisely because you only wear white that I want you to try other colors. I want you to know that as long as you dare to try, you'll find that not only white suits you, but other colors will also be very beautiful." As he spoke, he handed the money to the lady boss and ordered a few accessories that he had chosen out of boredom earlier. Before Gong Sunshue could react, he had already taken those things and smiled brightly at her. "And you don't have to worry about spending money. I'll buy it for you." Gong Sunshue looked at the person in front of her and felt like she was being protected under his wings. And Xiao Yao followed through with his words, buying and buying along the way. For a moment, Gong Sunshue thought that his family owned a bank. Chapter 1590. Along the way, as long as she looked at something for more than 2 glances, Xiao Yao would immediately take out money to buy it. No matter how she explained that she was just curious and didn't have to buy it, he stubbornly insisted. In the end, she could only follow his wishes. It was really difficult to communicate with a stubborn person. Gong Sunshue had never seen a person who liked to spend money so much. However, she forgot that this person who had started buying and spending money like water had never bought anything for himself. He had bought everything for her. She looked at Xiao Yao, who was so big that she couldn't even hug him with 2 hands. However, this guy still wanted to buy something for her. If she hadn't stopped him in the end, she was afraid that he would have bought the entire street. When the vendors saw him, it was as if they had seen gold. Their eyes shone, and they couldn't wait to sell their things. Gong Sunshue felt very speechless. However, on this cold night, her heart was like the lanterns on both sides of the road, faintly showing traces of warmth. Xiao Yao looked at the person walking beside him. The light of the lanterns sprinkled on her body. She was usually dressed in white, but at this time, it was tinged with a faint yellow color. He couldn't help but feel that she was finally not as unworldly as before. He felt a little more intimate. He thought that this trip was worth it. After walking around for a while, the two were ready to go back. When they were about to reach the place where the carriage was parked, Xiao Yao saw a circle of people around them. He didn't know what they were looking at. He had always liked crowds. After putting the things in the carriage, he squeezed in with the ice beauty to see what was going on. In the middle of the crowd, there was a 14 or 15-year-old girl kneeling. She looked delicate and pretty, wearing mourning clothes. White flowers were in her hair, and her face was full of tears. In the night wind, her body trembled, and the passers-by couldn't help but feel pity for her. In front of the girl was a piece of paper. On it was written, "Sell yourself to bury your father." Seeing this, Xiao Yao realized that the person next to her was covered with a straw mat. It was obvious that it was her father. However, because of the recent war, and the Japanese being ruled by the Yu clan, the people had no way of making a living. Everyone was just watching for fun or sighing with emotion. No one really paid to buy this little girl. After all, she couldn't even feed herself, so how could she have the energy to feed another mouth? So everyone dispersed after some discussion. Other than sympathy, there was nothing they could do. Xiao Yao and Gongsun Shui were both extraordinary people. They were even more eye-catching when they stood together. The people who stayed all made space for them. Perhaps they thought that such luxuriously dressed people could afford to buy this little girl so that her father could be buried. The little girl, who had been crying with her head lowered, raised her head timidly. Her eyes were full of begging and pity. However, wherever she looked, the people there would retreat and avoid her eyes. She was a little hopeless. However, when she saw Higashio Motetsu and Gong Sunshiue, her eyes lit up as if she had seen hope. She rushed to Gong Sunshiue and cried out in a hoarse voice, "Miss, please have pity on me. I beg you." Xiao Yao raised his eyebrows and looked at the ice beauty. At this time, Gong Sunshiue also looked at him. He thought that the ice beauty would be impatient. She was a very troublesome person. However, he was surprised that she didn't show any impatience. On the contrary, she looked at him with eyes that seemed to be asking for his opinion. This made him suddenly feel that he had a place in her heart. Xiao Yao also sympathized with this little girl. However, their trip was a secret and they had plenty of people. There was no need to add more. So, he stood for a while and prepared to pay for the little girl's burial. He took out a money bag and put it in front of the little girl. Then he smiled and said, "Use this money to buy a coffin for your father. Find a place to bury him. Keep the rest of the money and live a good life." Xiao Yao's action was somewhat unexpected by Gongsun Shui. She didn't expect him to be such a kind person. The little girl didn't pick up the money bag. Instead, she cried and looked at the two of them pleadingly. "This little girl has no relatives, no home. I don't want the rest of the money. Please take me in. I will repay your kindness, even if I have to be an ox or a horse for the rest of my life." Xiao Yao was in a difficult position. The little girl saw that Xiao Yao didn't say anything. She cried and said to Gongsun Shui, "Miss, I have great strength. I can do manual labor. Please take me in. If I make things difficult for the two of you, this little girl will accompany my father in death." When these words came out, everyone sucked in a breath. Perhaps it was because she had no relatives in this world and was afraid of being bullied. That was why she was so disgusted with the world. At this time, Gongsun Shui looked at Xiao Yao and said faintly, "I want to take her in." The Ice Beauty's idea was also out of Xiao Yao's expectations. He thought that the Ice Beauty was cold, but he didn't expect her to be such a soft-hearted person. Xiao Yao found it hard to understand why she didn't become soft-hearted even when he was always busy in front of her. However, it was rare for the Ice Beauty to speak. If he didn't agree, she probably wouldn't be willing to come out to play with him in the future. He thought that if worst came to worst, he could go back and report to his brother and ask him to give him some face. No one knew that in the blink of an eye, Xiao Yao's heart was in turmoil. Because of Gongsun Shui's words, everyone's eyes were focused on Xiao Yao. They seemed to think that as long as he nodded, the little girl would be saved. Xiao Yao thought it was funny. No one was a savior, but today, with a deep voice, he stopped the little girl's helpless cries and said, "Take the money and bury your father properly. After everything is taken care of, go to the Xiao mansion in the South Alley and report my name as Xiao Heir. Someone will naturally lead you to the mansion." As soon as he finished speaking, the crowd seemed to have obtained the most satisfactory result and dispersed. The little girl was pleasantly surprised and kowtowed 3 times to thank him. Xiao Yao immediately stepped aside and waved his folding fan. "There's no need to be so courteous. I'm afraid my life will be shortened." "What's your name?" Gongsun Shui asked faintly. "This servant is called Qiu Feng." The little girl immediately replied, "Then you'll be called Qiu Feng." "Yes, Qiu Feng thanks the 2 masters." Before leaving, Gongsun Shui and Qiu Feng looked at each other secretly and then separated. Before getting on the carriage, Xiao Yao asked, "Why do you want to accept that girl?" Gongsun Shui looked up and met his eyes that were as clear as the sky and asked, Then why did you agree to accept her? These words made Xiao Yao touch the back of his head awkwardly. There's no reason. Since you asked, I couldn't refuse. That would be too ungentlemanly. She was very surprised by this answer. If I want the stars in the sky, do you want to pluck them? She didn't expect Xiao Yao to seriously think about it. I still have to try. Gongsun Shui felt that this person was unreasonable. She stepped on the stool and got on the carriage. The first thing she saw was a carriage full of things that he bought for her today, without any explanation. She picked up a doll. The texture was comfortable and very beautiful. Her eyes suddenly became blank. This person's kindness to her was too unreasonable and hard to resist. Chapter 1591. Just as he sent the ice beauty back to her courtyard, Xiao Yao saw Hualing waiting at the door. He couldn't help smiling. His royal brother's news was truly fast. He had just bought someone, and now he already knew. Hualing led the way in front. He turned around to comfort the second master. Relax, master is just looking for you to talk. It would have been better if he didn't comfort him. Once he comforted him, Xiao Yao felt like there was a trap ahead. Why did he feel so scared? This was because his royal brother normally didn't like to see people. This was because his royal brother felt there was no need to waste time with other people. The time he spent with his wife was decreasing with each passing day, so it was better to be with his wife. It was also a special time right now. His royal sister-in-law was pregnant, and his royal brother wanted to be by her side every day. How could he care about other people around him? Therefore, how could he not feel distressed when she came looking for him at such a time when she was so busy and affectionate? Before entering, Hualing smiled at him. He felt that this person was like a little demon with fangs, not allowing him to feel at ease at all. Xiao Yao took a deep breath and then gathered his courage to walk in. There was only his royal brother in the hall, but he became even more scared. Xiao Su leaned back in his chair and tapped the table with one hand, making rhythmic sounds. It was like the sound of a drum hitting Xiao Yao's heart, making his heart jump. Hearing the sound of footsteps, Xiao Su looked up and saw his second brother trying his best to smile at him. He couldn't help raising his brows. Don't smile if you don't want to, it's an eyesore. Xiao Yao felt wronged in his heart. One shouldn't hit a smiling person. Royal brother, do you need me for something? Can I find you if there's nothing? Xiao Su asked back. Xiao Yao's smile froze. It really was a sign that his royal brother was unhappy. No. Isn't this subject brother afraid of disturbing royal brother and royal sister-in-law? There's no other meaning. Xiao Su gave a snort in his heart. If it wasn't for the little fellow thinking it wasn't good for him to interfere with his little brother's matters and chasing him out, he wouldn't have left the little fellow half a step. So the pressure around him became even lower, making the confused Xiao Yao even more scared. He went straight to the point and didn't beat around the bush. What's going on between you and Miss Sun? Xiao Yao blinked. He was a little confused. What do you mean by what happened? Xiao Su glanced at him. You're a prince, yet you're always running around with people. Do you think I don't know? Xiao Yao sighed in his heart. Sure enough, people of different families were bound to enter the same house. It was exactly the same as what Imperial's sister-in-law had said. Imperial brother, you're thinking too much. There's nothing between me and that girl. I just sympathize with her because she's alone outside and being hunted down. So, you know that there's nothing wrong with me. It's just that I'm overflowing with sympathy and love. I think you're just being promiscuous. Xiao Su blandly exposed him. Xiao Yao scratched his head and said miserably, that was because I had to put on a show in the past. Haven't I turned over a new leaf now? Imperial brother, you can't deny my present because of the past. Xiao Su caught the words and narrowed his eyes. Oh, so you're saying that your feelings for that girl are sincere? Xiao Yao was stunned for a moment. After a long time, he finally found his voice and complained, Imperial brother, what nonsense are you talking about? Xiao Su changed his posture and leaned against the back of the chair. He said slowly, you know what I'm talking about. If you like that girl, there's no problem in marrying her. But there's one thing you have to know. Your sister-in-law doesn't like people who abandon their wives. So, I hope you won't do anything. If Ian is unhappy, don't come see me. Xiao Yao felt that his imperial brother had taken a big leap. Why was he talking about marriage? He clearly hadn't said anything yet. Okay? Xiao Su looked at the sky and said impatiently, "Don't play dumb with me. You've been smarter than others since you were young. How could I not know your cunning mind?" Being exposed by his imperial brother, Xiao Yao suddenly felt like he had been exposed. However, he faintly didn't want to admit it in his heart. Perhaps it was because the ice beauty had always been indifferent to him. He had put on a cold face for so long, and his pride as a noble son of the imperial family didn't allow him to admit it so easily. So, Xiao Yao, who had just understood his feelings, fooled himself just like that. Imperial brother, this younger brother doesn't have such thoughts. It wasn't easy for this younger brother to leave that damned place. This younger brother only wants to live a free and peaceful life for a few years, see the mountains and rivers, and experience the local customs. So, beauty, marriage, those are all things that are far away. You don't have to worry about me. Xiao Yao kept denying it, and Xiao Su didn't argue with him. Although the elder brother was like a father, these younger brothers were already so old. They had experienced great storms and waves, and they were already mature enough that no one needed to worry about them. If it wasn't for the little fellow's exhortations, he also didn't want to get involved in his second brother's matters. However, he still had to remind him of some things. Let's not talk about this first. Let's talk about the good things you've done today. When Xiao Su said this, Xiao Yao recalled his previous worries. He fawned over him and said, "Imperial brother, since it's a good thing, then there's no need to praise me. I gave you a pole, and you really know how to climb up?" Xiao Su lightly snorted. When his second brother's shoulders drooped, he questioned, "We've already agreed before that our identities are special, and we're not familiar with this place. We can't provoke the people here. You didn't listen the first time and took in Miss Sunday. Her life was in danger, and you extended a helping hand. This is pardonable, and I won't fuss about it. But today, you bought a servant girl. Do you really think you're a universal person?" Xiao Yao was speechless. It was true that he didn't consider this matter thoroughly, but he also didn't want to refute the Ice Beauty's words. However, he was also prepared to face his imperial brother's reprimand. "Imperial brother, this matter was wrong. I accept the beating, scolding, and punishment." He straightened his back and said. Xiao Su rubbed his forehead. This second brother, he usually didn't see him so muddle-headed. Could it be that even a hero couldn't resist the charms of a beauty? "Since you've already taken her, what else can I say? There won't be a next time." These words made Xiao Yao's eyes light up with a smile. His mouth seemed to be smeared with honey. "I knew that imperial brother is considerate and has a strong stomach. You are always so glib. Don't wait until our son and daughter are old enough to buy soy sauce. You'll still be alone." Xiao Su shook his head and stood up. "At worst, I'll treat you and third brother's child as my own in the future. Isn't it the same?" Xiao Yao shrugged and smiled indifferently. Xiao Su walked to his side and patted his shoulder. "There are some things that I still have to remind you of." Xiao Yao saw that his imperial brother was so serious, and immediately became serious. "Imperial brother, please speak." After the time it took to drink a cup of tea, Xiao Su walked out, leaving behind a stunned Xiao Yao. But before he left, he turned sideways and raised his eyebrows. "If you want to raise a child, do it yourself. Don't have any ideas about us." After leaving the door, Xiao Su thought that he could go back and report to his wife. Chapter 1592. Xiao Yao didn't know whether to laugh or cry at his royal brother's words. It could be seen that not only was his royal brother obsessed with his wife, he was also protective of his children. But after his royal brother left, Xiao Yao recalled his royal brother's words, and his heart sank. "Ice Beauty, what secrets do you have on your body?" He pressed his forehead, that was hurting a bit, and finally put down his hand. He slowly walked out, and saw Huoling's figure as soon as he walked out. Xiao Yao called out to him, "What did royal brother tell you just now?" Thinking of what Master said before, if the second master asked, there was no need to hide it. Huoling came out with a smile on his face. Master told this subordinate to investigate the girl that second master was soft-hearted and took in today. Xiao Yao's lips twitched. It was bad enough that he was taught a lesson by his royal brother, but even the people by his side were teasing him. Where'd he put his face? He kicked Hualing. Go, 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 you become bold, even daring to speak to me. Hualing's body nimbly flashed, and he retreated to the bottom of the stairs. Then his eyes suddenly focused, and he respectfully said to Xiao Yao, Miss Sun, why are you here? Xiao Yao immediately stopped the thought of teaching this stinky brat a lesson. He straightened his clothes and checked where he had lost his composure. Then he turned around and prepared to speak to her. However, there was no one beside him. Xiao Yao knew he had been tricked. When he turned around, that stinky brat Hualing had already run off to who knows where. He couldn't help laughing in anger. Don't let him see you again, otherwise don't blame him for being impolite. And this scene was seen by the Emperor Emeritus and Father Chu, who were passing by. The Emperor Emeritus shook his head. As expected, children who fall in love will have their intelligence lowered. Poor grandson, it can't be any lower. He simply doesn't want to admit that he is this one's grandson. Father Chu nodded and then shook his head. I feel that if you fall in love, your IQ and EQ are on the line. That little fan has always been this stupid. The Emperor Emeritus expressed his agreement. Then the two of them swaggered past Xiao Yao like this. Xiao Yao's lips twitched. Speaking so loudly, did they think he was deaf? Everyone was bullying him, so he should find a piece of tofu and kill himself. Sichuan Imperial Palace. Xiaoho held a letter and carefully read it under the light. When his gaze landed on his sister-in-law who was pregnant again, his eyes couldn't help but ripple with a smile. At this time, Pang Zhijing came in with a bowl of tonic soup. She happened to see the smile under the light. The stranger was like jade, and the young master was unparalleled. Even though she had been with him for a period of time, she still couldn't help but be mesmerized by his every move. Sometimes, she would wonder how there could be such a good-looking person in this world. He was even more good-looking than a girl. How could such an unreasonable thing exist? However, when this person smiled at her, all her rationality and doubts would vanish and be sucked into the gentle whirlpool he gave her. Just like now. Xiaoho heard her footsteps and turned around to see her carrying something. He walked over and took the plate with one hand and put the other hand around her waist as they walked back. He said in a pampering tone, Why are you here? I'll go back to accompany you and Little Ball after I'm done with the accounts. Pang Zhijing felt that his embrace was very gentle, his voice was very gentle, and his smile was also very gentle. Her entire body softened. I had nothing to do, so I came to see you. They say that men look the best when they're serious, so I came to see you when you're usually the best. Her slightly coquettish words, with a soft and gentle tone, made Xiaoho's heart melt in an instant. He put down the plate, pinched her chin, and raised it so that their eyes met. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly, and a charming smile bloomed in front of Pang Zhijing, causing her to fall into a daze. At this time, she only felt a hot breath teasing her ear. I thought that the me in bed was the most serious and the best looking. When he said this, Pang Zhijing instantly understood what he meant. Her entire face flushed red, and it wasn't clear whether she was embarrassed or embarrassed. Why, you were outside. Don't be like this. Her rosy cheeks were so beautiful that it made people want to reach out and pinch them to see if water would come out. Her moist eyes avoided his gaze, and her long, curly eyelashes fluttered like a feather, using its tail to rub against his heart. It tickled him, and if he didn't do anything, he would feel sorry for such a good mood. Ever since he separated from his wife for 3 years, Xiaoho felt that he didn't need to suppress himself anymore. Just like now. He made a prompt decision, hugged his wife's waist, and with a turn, he sat on the chair while she sat on his knees. He didn't give her time to react, and accurately found the right direction. His lips pressed down, and with one hand supporting her waist, his other hand slipped under her clothes. Pang Zhijing, who was already a little confused by this unforeseen event, suddenly lost control of her upper and lower body. She simply didn't have time to react, and her entire body was like a puddle of mud in his arms. Following his movements, an incomparably dazzling light seemed to appear in front of her eyes. In the end, she didn't know where he touched, but she seemed to suddenly wake up. She grabbed his hand and softly said, "Don't When she first entered the palace, the people in the palace had never heard of her, and they didn't know her identity. She even had a child, and in the future, she would only be the concubine of a new emperor who was about to ascend the throne. Once, when she came to the imperial study to find him, she was deliberately made difficult and waited outside for more than 2 hours. Later, when Xiao found out, the dragon face was furious, and all the people on duty in the palace were punished. The entire palace underwent a great purge, and since then, no one dared to look down on or neglect Pang Zhijing. It wasn't until not long after Pang Zhijing was won and the identity of the little princess was announced that everyone knew that she was the person at the top of the new emperor's heart, and they became even more respectful towards Pang Zhijing. Although this kind of favoritism made Pang Zhijing very happy, her identity now was different from before, and she couldn't be as willful as before. Xiao also didn't want to do her here. Panting, he calmed the restlessness in his body, and then gently reached out to help her tidy her clothes. Holding her in his arms, he cherished her like a treasure. I just received a letter from Imperial Brother. He said that everything was fine over there, and he also mentioned a happy occasion. Xiao used this topic to divert the current charming atmosphere between the two of them. Attracted by the word happy occasion, Pang Zhijing immediately grabbed his clothes and asked, "What happy occasion? Is it related to Qingyan?" And so smart, Xiao pinched her delicate nose and let go before she rolled her eyes. Then he smiled slightly and said, "Imperial Brother said that Imperial sister-in-law is pregnant. It seems that the Imperial family is going to have children again." Pang Zhijing instantly beamed with joy. She was really happy. That means little Ball is going to have a younger brother or sister again. That's great. Xiao nodded. As the younger brother, he had a child earlier than his older brothers. This was the thing he was proudest of so far. But Xiao's gaze fell on his wife's belly, and he looked pensive. Chapter 1593. After hearing the good news, Pang Zhijing started nagging about what to prepare for Qingyan. When they returned, she also wanted to give Little and Kong a greeting gift. Ever since she returned, she had not met them. After not seeing them for 3 years, she missed them a lot. However, when she was talking nonstop at the side, she suddenly realized that a certain someone's wolf gaze had been fixed on her. This feeling was the same as every night when he made endless demands. Pang Zhijing could not help but shiver and wanted to secretly move away from his legs. However, Xiao tightened his arms when she shivered and asked in a low voice, "What's wrong? Are you wearing too little?" As he said that, he reached out to touch her hand and realized that it was indeed a little cold. So he hugged her even tighter and used his body temperature to warm her up. Pang Zhijing shook her head guiltily. "It's nothing," seeing that little rascal was once again obediently nestled in his embrace. Xiao couldn't help but reveal a smile as his thoughts returned to the matter from before. Little Ball was born 3 months later than Little Ball, but he has to be an older brother before Little Ball. When do you think Little Ball can be an older sister? Xiao's tone was gentle, but there was a hidden meaning behind it. No matter how slow Pang Zhijing was, she could hear the meaning behind his shameless words. She swallowed her saliva and laughed. "You must have remembered wrongly. Little Ball is already an older sister. Isn't Little Ball her younger brother?" Xiao's smile became even gentler, but in Pang Zhijing's eyes, it was the smile of a wolf grandmother. Jing, I know you understand what I mean." "I'm so stupid. How can I understand what you mean?" As she spoke, she tried to escape from his arms again. It was too scary. Why did she feel that the shameless man was turning into a wolf again? She had to leave quickly. Speaking of which, why did she take the initiative to deliver the soup today? It was like a sheep in a wolf's mouth. "Where are you going?" "I haven't finished speaking yet." Xiao hugged her waist tightly. No matter what she thought of, she could not escape. Pang Zhijing wanted to cry, but had no tears. She was completely out of ideas. "Shameless, what are you trying to do?" Xiao rested his chin on her shoulder and smiled gently. His eyes were filled with anticipation and tenderness. "Little rascal, let's have another child." Hearing this, Pang Zhijing was moved. It was not because of anything else, but because this guy's voice was too bewitching. She nodded subconsciously, but when she came back to her senses, she couldn't help but feel a little troubled. Little Ball is still young. Should we wait a little longer? Xiao caressed her face. His calm eyes were like a warm sea that had been dyed with ink. If a child is too lonely, at least two children will lean on each other and protect each other. Pang Zhijing had to admit that what Shameless said was very reasonable. Thinking about how Little Ball had been obedient and matured earlier than her peers, she felt a little sorry for her. She hugged Xiao Ho's neck and pressed her face on his shoulder. Her eyes gradually became misty. Shameless in my life, I have never owed anyone anything, but I owe this child too much. When I was pregnant for 10 months, I did not touch her belly or talk to her. When she was born, I was still unconscious and could not comfort her as soon as she was born. Later on, when I woke up and was bedridden, I did not personally feed her breast milk or even hug her. However, she still grew up alone and healthy. She should be at the age where she should be doted on, but she learned to comfort, take care of, be considerate, and be thick-skinned. We are a pair of cheap parents. No matter what happens in the future, we have to prioritize Little Ball. Xiao Ho pressed his forehead against hers. His voice was low and there was a faint sigh. Aren't I the same? The more sensible Little Ball was, the more guilty he felt. The companionship he had missed in the past would become the greatest regret of his life. He could never forget it. He could only use the rest of his life to make up for it bit by bit. Jingjing. Little Ball's name is Xiao Yuhan. Han, the first clear day after the snow, symbolized the darkness of the past and the dawn of the sky. It symbolized beauty and hope. He hoped that the suffering would pass and the misfortune would leave. His daughter would be happy and safe. Pang Zhijing smiled. Tears overflowed from her eyes and the corners of her mouth curved up. Okay, Yuhan, don't worry. We will always be by her side. If we are 100 years from now, her younger siblings will still be there to protect her. Xiao Ho hugged the woman he loved the most and gave her a solemn promise as a husband and a father. Pang Zhijing nodded heavily. When they returned to their palace, Little Ball immediately threw down the toys in her hands when she saw her parents. She ran over and hugged her mother's leg. Then, she raised her head and smiled sweetly at her father. When Little Ball expressed her affection to her mother, she didn't forget to greet her father. The two of them took very good care of each other. However, it was this consideration that made the emperor feel a little sad. Little Rascal was right. At this age, where she should be willful and spoiled, Little Ball was so sensible that it made one's heart ache. Xiao Ho bent down and picked up Little Ball. He placed her on his shoulder and eased the dryness in his throat. He smiled and said, "Let's go. Father will take you to see the bird's nest." This bird's nest had been blown down by the wind a few days ago. Little Ball had asked him to put it back on the tree. Pang Zhijing stood by the door and looked at her husband, who had shed his majesty as the emperor and returned to his gentle self in front of the mother and daughter. She also looked at her daughter, who was so excited at her age. Pang Zhijing felt her chest fill with warmth and couldn't help but smile. At night, the imperial palace was already silent. The lanterns swayed quietly in the wind. The imperial guards patrolled in an orderly manner. Everything was as usual. Inside the palace, Xiao Ho used his body to carry out his words today. On the wide bed, the mandarin duck brocade quilt moved up and down. Low gasps and tender moans mixed together. The temperature rose steadily. Pang Zhijing's hand tightly clasped his arm. She found that he was a little different from usual tonight. She thought that he might have been provoked by her brother's letter. However, if this continued, she wouldn't be able to take it. She couldn't help but raise her head and bite down on his shoulder. Xiao Ho sensed her thoughts and gave a low laugh. His normally gentle face revealed a magnificent color, extremely charming. Towards Little Rascal's actions, he allowed her to do as she pleased. However, he didn't stop his actions. Instead, he used all kinds of methods to grind her down. She couldn't help but loosen her bite. She wanted to push him away, but she couldn't help but become addicted. Pang Zhijing despised herself for being so eager, but his methods were really too good. After being together for so long, he had studied everything about her, to the extent that she would throw away her armor the moment he touched her. She didn't want to be unable to get out of bed tomorrow. Xiao Ho! Xiao Ho raised his head. His gorgeous and enchanting face made Pang Zhijing instantly stunned. What a sin! How could there be such a good-looking person? He was completely different from when he was in bed. Be good. You promised me that you would give Little Ball a younger brother or sister. After Xiao Ho finished speaking, he directly covered her lips and swallowed all her following words. Such a beautiful scene shouldn't be let down. Chapter 1594. When Xiao Su returned to his wife's side, Xiao Ankong was lying on the bed and asking, "Mother, can I sleep with you tonight? I want to sleep with my younger siblings too." Her son was so adorable. How could Chu Qingyan bear to reject him? She stroked his soft hair and nodded with a smile. "Okay, I'll get your Aunt Jasper to prepare a small blanket for you later." Xiao Su had just entered the house when he heard this. He said resolutely, "No." Xiao Ankong frowned when he heard this. It was not easy for him to wait until his father was not around before he came over to tell his mother. Yet, his father came over to cause trouble again. He turned his head and glared at the person who was walking over unhurriedly. Why not? Mother has already agreed to it. As soon as Xiao Su stood still, his son's question came over. Even the little guy's gaze was on him. He cleared his throat and said, as usual, "You're already 2 years old. Letting you sleep alone is to cultivate your ability to take charge. You have to learn to be independent." Xiao Ankong hugged his 2 short hands together. He was so adorable, but he still tried his best to pretend to be an adult. "Father, you've been saying this since I was 6 months old, 1 year old, and 1.5 years old." Xiao Su said righteously. Good habits have to be nurtured from a young age. At this moment, Xiao Ankong looked suspiciously at his father in front of him and said disdainfully, "Then why are you still sleeping with Mother when Father is so much older than me? Why don't you cultivate your independence?" Xiao Su's face darkened when he heard his son's words. Chu Qingyan, who was watching from the side, broke into laughter in a second. She had just laughed twice when she received a cold gaze from the big ice cube. She immediately covered her mouth and made a zipping motion to ensure that she would not expose him. However, she was still laughing in her heart. She secretly gave her son a thumbs up. He was indeed her good son. Xiao Ankong secretly winked at his mother to show off. Xiao Su's face darkened even more. Did he think he was blind to do such a brazen action? As expected of his biological brother, he had the same experience as Xiao Yao. "Father is different from you." Xiao Ankong immediately put his hands on his hips and stomped his feet. "How is it different? You're saying that only you and Mother are allowed to sleep together, but Bao Bao is not allowed to sleep with Mother." Chu Qingyan leaned against the side of the bed. She was smiling so much that her eyes were almost squinted. Kong Kong was quite good at drawing inferences from one example. Not bad, not bad. She could be taught. However, Xiao Su's heart was like rotten wood that could not be carved. He rubbed his forehead. Since when had he been rendered speechless by his own son? Obviously, if he couldn't convince people with reason, with his son's temperament, there would be no end to it. "Before I met your mother, I've always slept by myself." Hearing this, Xiao Kong turned to his mother with a conflicted expression. "Then wouldn't Bao Bao have to wait until he grows up before he can sleep with Mother?" "No." Xiao Su shook his finger. And Kong was stunned. Xiao Su then slowly said, "You will have your own wife." In the end, he still couldn't sleep with his mother. Xiao Kong refused. No, I don't want to listen. I just want to sleep with Mother." No matter how smart Kong was, he was only a 2-year-old child. It was normal for him to want his mother. Xiao Su thought that his son was quite cute when he was young. Why was he so clingy now? At this moment, Xiao Kong walked to the side of the bed in his shoes and asked his mother loudly, "Mother, do you want Father or Bao Bao?" This time, Chu Qingyan had turned from a spectator to an actor on stage. She felt 2 burning gazes land on her, and she couldn't help but swallow her saliva. This was a classic case of a fish in a moat getting caught in the crossfire and getting burnt. How was she supposed to choose between a fish and a bear's paw? Xiao Su looked over. You dare not choose me? Bao Bao looked over with tears in his eyes. Choose Bao Bao. Chu Qingyan felt that this was a problem of the century. It was comparable to the problem of who would you save first when your wife and mother fell into the water. At this time, it was best not to offend anyone. She'd better pretend to have fainted. I can't see clearly. I must be tired. I'll lie down for a while. As she spoke, she quickly got under the blanket and blinked innocently at the two of them. She quickly turned around and faced the two of them with the back of her head. Xiao and Kong was dumbfounded. Father, does mother not want us anymore? Xiao Su held back his laughter, but he still nodded with a straight face. It seems so. Xiao and Kong stared at the cup on the bed in disbelief. He couldn't help but turn to look at his father with a pitiful look in his eyes. Xiao Su was puzzled. Why was his son looking at him with sympathy? At this moment, Xiao and Kong walked in front of him and tugged at his sleeve. Father, mother doesn't want you anymore. How pitiful. Forget it. Bao Bao will sleep with you tonight. Xiao Su couldn't accept the sudden change in attitude. He reminded him, don't forget that not only does your mother not want your father, she also doesn't want you. Xiao and Kong looked at him with disdain. Father, don't forget that when Bao Bao grows up, Bao Bao will still have a wife, but you won't have one because your wife doesn't want you now. There was nothing wrong with that logic. Chu Qingyan was laughing so hard under the blanket that she almost couldn't breathe. Who said that the older the ginger, the spicier it is? It should be that the younger generation pushes the older generation forward, and the older generation dies on the beach. Xiao Su's face darkened. It was not glorious to be despised by his son. Although he knew that the little fellow did this because he didn't want to offend either side, his son's words still made him feel a little defeated. On the surface, he was indeed dumped by his wife, but his son still knew how to comfort him at this time. It was a kind of gratification. He held his son's little hand and looked at the little bundle on the bed that was shaking nonstop. He suddenly laughed softly. Okay, sleep with father tonight. Xiao and Kong immediately cheered, his little legs jumping happily. Before he left, he didn't forget to bid farewell to his mother on the bed. Bao Bao and father are leaving. Mother, have a good rest. One big and one small walked out of the door. Father, Bao Bao wants to listen to the story of the battle at night gate tonight. Father, can Bao Bao eat a bowl of glutinous rice balls before sleeping tonight? Father, Bao Bao wants to watch the stars tonight. Will you accompany me? Father, Bao Bao realized that sleeping with you is also very good. When there was no sound in the room, Chu Qingyan sat up with the blanket in her arms. Looking at the empty space in front of her, there was no one. Only then did she tragically realize that in the end, the one who was abandoned was actually herself. What happened to being in high demand and being the darling that the two of them were fighting for? How did it become disdain for his wife and mother? Chu Qingyan bit the blanket and whimpered, "Don't even think about getting on my bed in the future. Two heartless people." Chapter 1595. The night was quiet and the wind was chilly. The winter weather had also started to turn cold. The room was surrounded by a heater. Because Chu Qingyan was pregnant, no one dared to let down their guard to keep warm. Jasper handed a hand warmer to her master. Seeing her master's absent-minded expression, she couldn't help but ask, "Is master thinking about his highness and little master?" Chu Qingyan was too embarrassed to admit it, so she waved her hand and said, "I've been sleeping in the daytime for too long, so I'm not sleepy now. You can leave first. I'll call you if there's anything." After following her master for so many years, how could she not understand her master's thoughts? She smiled faintly, nodded, and left. After the door was closed, Chu Qingyan hugged the quilt with one hand and supported her chin with the other. This was the first time she slept alone since they got together. On such a cold night, she disappointingly admitted that she couldn't sleep at all without Big Ice's warm embrace. Once some habits were formed, it was really hard to change. For example, she was used to being in his embrace, enjoying his warmth, and used to smelling the faint ink fragrance on his body, which had the effect of calming the mind and helping her sleep. Sigh. She really lost both her son and her husband today. Jasper, who had just left, bumped into Xiao Su. She bowed in greeting. Your Highness, Ian has rested? She hasn't rested yet. Jasper answered truthfully. Xiao Su nodded. You can leave. Yes. Before Jasper left, she looked at Xiao Su suspiciously. Under that wide cloak, he seemed to be hugging something, but he was hugging it too tightly, so she couldn't see clearly. When she turned the corner and saw the flash of a little shoe, she understood and left with a smile. It seemed that she had to tell old Madame Chu tonight that she didn't need to look after little master. At this time, the gloomy Chu Qingyan heard the door open. Thinking that Jasper had returned, she asked in a muffled voice without raising her head, Why are you back? Did you leave something behind? She had already entered the room, and the door was closed, but she didn't hear a reply. She was a little puzzled. When she turned her head again, she heard the familiar footsteps and couldn't help but open her eyes. The person was already near, and so was the voice. After I left, I realized that I had left you behind, so I came back to look for you. There was a hint of mockery in her coldness, and a hint of a smile in her mockery. He didn't need to look to know who it was. Chu Qingyan snorted. You still know to come back. I thought you forgot about your wife after you had a son. Xiao Su felt that this scene was familiar. Didn't it just happen today? He sat down, lifted the little fellow's chin with one hand, and covered her without any explanation. Their lips and teeth intertwined, kissing her until she was gasping for breath. Chu Qingyan leaned on his shoulder and raised her hand to hit him. She grumbled softly. I thought you really abandoned me last night. Pregnant women tended to have a little temper. It was as if the delicate side of her that she had never noticed before had been stimulated. If it had been any other time, she wouldn't have thought much of the big ice cube sleeping with her son. But now that she was pregnant, she was sentimental and needed someone to accompany her. That was why she felt this way. Thus, Chu Qingyan despised her own pretentiousness and complained about the injustice she had suffered. Xiao Su smiled. His hand that was around her slender waist stroked her silky hair. When have I ever let you be alone? You little vinegar jar. Chu Qingyan rolled her eyes at him. Who was jealous of their son today? Indeed, only the state officials were allowed to set fires, but the common people were not allowed to light lamps. At this moment, she saw her son wrapped in his cloak from the corner of her eye. She immediately sat up in shock. You brought Kong Kong back? After saying this, she suspiciously looked at the calm person beside her. She had no idea what he was thinking. But when she thought about how they had kissed in front of Kong Kong, even if he was asleep, her face couldn't help but turn red. She couldn't help but pat his shoulder a few times. How embarrassing. How could Xiao Su not know what she was thinking? He caressed her face, then placed their sleeping son between the two of them. He considerately covered him with a blanket. Tonight, we'll sleep as a family of 3. After saying this, he kissed his dazed wife. Chu Qingyan was stunned. Didn't you not let Kong Kong sleep with me today? Why did you suddenly change your mind? Xiao Su's gaze fell on his son, who was sleeping soundly under the blanket. He softened his tone. I didn't let you sleep with him because I was afraid that he would kick the blanket in the middle of the night and kick your stomach. But after thinking about it, Imperial Mother didn't want to sleep with me in the past. I was used to sleeping alone, but I forgot that at his age, he should spend more time with his parents. I didn't have a complete childhood, so how could I let him have an incomplete childhood? Hearing him talk about the past, Chu Qingyan's eyes couldn't help reddening. She couldn't help but reach out to hug his waist and rest her head on his shoulder. It's fine, it's all in the past. Isn't it just me and Kong Kong now? Right, there's also the baby in my stomach. Our entire family is here. In the future, we'll be complete. He patted the back of her hand and softly said, I've always known that. Then let's sleep together tonight. She obediently burrowed into the blanket and patted the spot beside her as she smiled at him. Xiao Su took off his clothes and burrowed into the blanket as well. He hugged the soft little fellow across from Kong and smiled faintly. I'll keep an eye on Kongin tonight and won't let him kick you. Sleep peacefully. Chu Qingyan rubbed against his arm and nodded. She closed her eyes. She clearly wasn't sleepy at all earlier, but once she smelled his scent, her entire body relaxed. Drowsiness overwhelmed her, and she fell asleep. Hearing the long breaths by his ear, Xiao curved his lips. Having a wife and child to warm his bed was probably just like this. Thus, hugging the most important wife and child in his life, Xiao also gradually fell asleep. However, this night was long for Xiao, because his son, who looked obedient, was like a little demon king when he slept. He didn't stop at all. Xiao spent the entire night watching over him and basically didn't sleep at all. Because she slept very well, Chu Qingyan stretched lazily. Then, she opened her eyes and turned her head to the side comfortably. She saw that Big Ice Cube had woken up early and was half sitting on the bed, staring intently at his sleeping son. Now, what's with Big Ice Cube's black face? There's even a bruise at the corner of his mouth. Where did it come from? It clearly wasn't there before he went to sleep. At this moment, the culprit also woke up. He rubbed his eyes, and after seeing where he was sleeping, he jumped up like a carp. Baby can't believe it. Baby must be dreaming. That's right, you've been dreaming. Xiao gritted his teeth. Little Kong nodded seriously. Yes, last night, Baby dreamed that someone wanted to catch Baby, so Baby punched him left and right and beat him down. Ha! Chu Qingyan tried hard to hold back her laughter. So that's how it was. At this moment, Little Kong, who didn't know what was going on, scratched his head and said in confusion, Father, why do you look so pale? Xiao held his forehead. He shouldn't have been soft-hearted. Chapter 1596. Inside the room, Gongsun Shui was sitting while Qiu Feng, who had sold her body to bury her father yesterday, stood in front of her. If Xiao Yao was here, he would find that this little girl was no longer as timid and sorrowful as before. Instead, she had a solemn expression and a straight back, as if she was a completely different person. Is everything done? Gongsun Shui asked. Because she usually liked to be quiet, Xiao Yao didn't arrange for any servants to stay in her room. Even a few maids would only serve her medicine and meals, and wouldn't appear in front of her unless there was something important. Therefore, she wasn't afraid of being overheard when she spoke to Qiu Feng. It's all done. I borrowed the identity of an outsider to visit my family in the capital, but my relatives are long gone and I used up all my traveling expenses. My father died of an illness, so I sold my body to bury him. Qiu Feng immediately replied. Gongsun Shui nodded. Although it's not perfect, they won't be able to find anything wrong in a short time. Rest assured and stay here. I'll give you some advice later. You just have to pay attention to the rest. Qiu Feng received the order and said, Sect Master, Qingyu has already done as you instructed. You can be at ease with the matters of the clan for now. However, Qingyu said that she hasn't found any information about the Xiao clan yet. Sect Master, please wait a moment. So long as she finds any information, she'll notify me. Gongsun Shui knew that it wouldn't be found out so quickly. It's fine. Tell her to be careful and don't let anyone find out. When you meet up, be careful. The Xiao family, she paused and continued, is not an ordinary family, so it's necessary to be cautious. Qiu Feng nodded. Sect Master, don't worry. We will be careful. After talking about business, Qiu Feng's expression relaxed, and she said with relief, Sect Master, you don't know how worried we were when you were missing. Gongsun Shui thought of the pursuit that day, and her eyes dimmed. However, she was more amiable to her loyal subordinates. It's fine. It's all in the past. Hearing the sect master's nonchalant tone, Qiu Feng's eyes instantly felt a little sour. The sect master had never taken her body seriously. No matter how her subordinates tried to persuade her, she didn't care at all. With such a cold personality, they could only pay more attention to her in the future. Although I don't know the background of this Xiao clan, it is all thanks to their help that you are safe and sound. Gongsun Shui couldn't help but think of Xiao Yao. Although she didn't want to admit it, she still owed him a favor. Yes, no matter who they are, we owe them a favor. Qiu Feng deeply agreed. Disregarding everything else, just setting up a courtyard for the sect master to recuperate was not something an ordinary family would have. However, A thought suddenly flashed through Xiao Feng's mind, and she couldn't help but blurt out, "These people wouldn't be Elder Su's people, and they're preparing to scheme against you?" Gongsun Shui denied without hesitation, "No, how could Elder Su and the others have such powerful helpers? Not to mention the abilities of these people, just their bearing and low profile was not something that Elder Su and the others could compare to. Perhaps they could not find such an aristocratic family in the Yu clan." This time, Qiufeng was a bit confused. "Those people are unrelated to us. If Elder Su's people didn't want to harm you, then why would they help you for no reason?" This was also what Gongsun Shui couldn't figure out. Could it be that they really came to help when they saw injustice on the road? Qiufeng was confused. Gongsun Shui thought that perhaps this was the only explanation. The master and servant chatted for a while more, and a series of footsteps came from outside. The two of them naturally stopped talking. Xiao entered the room, and his gaze immediately fell on Gongsun Shui. He held up the box in his hand, as if he was presenting a treasure. "I just came back from outside, and I brought you some buns. I heard from the locals that the buns are the best here." As he spoke, Xiao placed the buns on the table in front of her. "By the way, have you taken a medicine this morning?" Xiao sat down on a chair across the table and asked with concern. Gongsun Shui raised her chin at the empty bowl beside her. Xiao understood and continued. "Although the medicine is a bit bitter, Yanluo said that your injuries are mostly healed, and you won't need to drink it again after 3 or 4 days. Bear with it. I'll find you some delicious candied fruits in the next 2 days to suppress the taste." "There's no need. The medicine isn't that bitter." She had taken countless medicines since she was young, so this was nothing to her. Xiao waved his fan and smiled. "Don't decline. It's settled then. I'm going to buy it for Kong Kong anyway." Because he was the one who brewed the medicine, he naturally knew how it tasted. However, if he drank it himself, he wouldn't be afraid of the bitterness, nor would he find it disgusting. But when he thought about how she was a girl, he knew that she wouldn't like it. He was used to seeing those delicate girls in the capital who were either afraid of fatigue or suffering. No matter how strong she was still a girl and needed to be taken care of carefully. Gongsun Shui thought that she was just incidental, so she let him be. "Sir, please have some tea." At this moment, a cup of tea was placed beside his hand. Xiao looked in the direction of the voice and felt that the servant girl was somewhat familiar. Just as he was wondering where he had seen her, Qiufeng took the initiative to speak. "Sir, thank you for saving my life yesterday. Wasn't this the little girl who sold herself to bury her father yesterday?" He didn't expect that after tidying up, she was still a delicate and pretty little girl. He nodded at her. "Since Miss Sun thinks highly of you, you should serve her well. If you have second thoughts, she doesn't need to say anything. This sir won't forgive you." It was normal for him to instruct her, so Qiufeng hurriedly agreed in fear and trepidation. Xiao turned around after he finished speaking and saw that the ice beauty was just sitting there quietly. She didn't even touch the steam buns on the table. He couldn't help but place his fan on the table and help her open the box. "You can't tell the taste just by looking at it. You have to taste it yourself to know. Here, try one." Gongsun Shui was just thinking about something when a steamed bun suddenly landed in front of her. She suppressed the urge to twitch her eyes. To be honest, she rarely ate anything other than staple food. But seeing that he had allowed Qiufeng to come in, she couldn't refuse his good intentions, so she took it from him. Qiufeng, who was standing at the side, felt like a storm had set off in her heart. Didn't sect master dislike people getting close to her? Didn't she dislike eating snacks? Why did she not only let Xiao get close to her, but also take the food from him? What exactly happened when they weren't by master's side? Xiao didn't know what the servant girl beside him was thinking. Seeing the ice beauty take a bite, he immediately leaned over and asked, "How's the taste?" Gongsun Shui originally thought that it was just a steamed bun. She didn't expect that it didn't taste like greasy meat. She couldn't help but taste it carefully. It seems to have the fragrance of flowers. You can't eat too greasy food. You just ate a rose steamed bun, so it naturally has the fragrance of roses. Roses can be added to the taste. Of course, there's nothing impossible about it. Xiao chuckled, then picked one up and ate it with her. Sect Master was actually discussing this kind of issue with someone. Xiao Feng felt that everything in front of her was not real. Chapter 1597. After eating and drinking to his heart's content, Xiao Yao felt comfortable all over. In addition, the sun was shining brightly and the weather was good. With a beauty beside him, he felt even more comfortable. However, this was only Xiao Yao's thought, because Gong Sun Xue felt that this person was too noisy by her ear. It would be best if he could shut up. Xiao Yao was completely unaware that he was being disliked. He was still talking about the interesting things that happened when he went out today. Isn't young master a local? Xiao Feng was pouring tea for the two of them. At this moment, she seemed to inadvertently ask a question out of curiosity. Xiao Yao was talking to his heart's content. When he heard this, he casually replied, "Of course not. We came from another place. I have to say that although there are many exotic flowers and strange animals here, it is not as prosperous as where we come from. The people live and work in peace. In short, the difference is too great." As a prince of a country, of course he was satisfied with his country and would naturally praise it. However, he did not exaggerate. During the years when his brother was ruling, it was really a bountiful harvest. The people had enough food and clothing. However, these words were unpleasant to Qiu Feng's ears. Wasn't this belittling the Yu clan? However, no matter how dissatisfied she was, she could not express it in front of others to avoid exposing her identity. However, Gong Sun Xue heard another layer of meaning. You mean that your hometown does not have the flowers, plants, and animals here? Xiao Yao nodded and casually pointed to the garden. Do you see that deciduous grass? I don't dare to say that we don't have it, but at least I haven't seen it before. Gong Sun Xue's mind worked quickly. These flowers and plants were everywhere in North Korea. However, Xiao Yao said that he had never seen them before coming here. Even if he lived in seclusion deep in the mountains and forests, those animals should be everywhere. Could it be that he was not from North Korea? If he was not from North Korea, then where did he come from? After he finished speaking, the ice beauty did not respond. Xiao Yao smiled and tilted his head to look at her. As he turned his head, he met the ice beauty's scrutinizing gaze in time. Gong Sun Xue was only a little embarrassed to be caught red-handed, but her expression did not change. After so many years, she had already developed this temperament. Even if she was in a mess internally, she would not show it on the surface. This kind of scrutinizing gaze reminded Xiao Yao of the days when everyone had to be on guard against him. Those people looked at him with such a gaze, guarding against him. Although 3 years had passed, the marks left behind couldn't be erased in a short time. Although it was different from Gong Sun Xue, the smile on his face faded as he recalled his brother's warning. Gong Sun Xue could clearly feel the faint indifference from Xiao Yao. The light in his eyes seemed to have been blown away by the wind. She was a little annoyed, but she was not good with words. She did not know how to break the awkward atmosphere. Thus, one looked at the ground, the other looked at the sky, and the other looked at the ground, frozen like this. Although Qiu Feng didn't understand why there was an awkward silence between the two of them, as a subordinate, she still knew how to adjust the atmosphere. She immediately smiled and said, "Master, are the buns that second master bought delicious?" This servant is about to drool from looking at them. Because Gong Sun Xue was the one who asked for Qiu Feng, it was right for Xiao Yao to call her master. Although he was a little unhappy, Xiao Yao was used to liveliness. The sudden silence between the two made him feel a little uncomfortable. However, he didn't know why he couldn't harden his heart and leave like this. But with his pride as a prince, it was impossible for him to take the initiative to speak, so the two of them could only sit there. Thus, whether Qiu Feng was trying to help or not, the atmosphere eased a lot. Xiao Yao followed Qiu Feng's words and said, "How could your master be someone who knows how to praise others? Of course it's delicious. If you're hungry, let your master give you one." How could Gong Sun Xue not know that his words were meant to sting her? She was complaining that he had bought so many things for her, but she had never said anything nice to him. Although he was mocking her, she couldn't get angry. After all, that was the truth. However, she didn't know why she felt a little wronged. She thought that she was overthinking things. She had just finished eating the bun in her hand. When she heard Xiao Yao's words, she pointed at the remaining buns and said, "If you like them, I'll give them all to you." If these words were spoken in the clan, it wouldn't be a big deal. However, Xiao Yao had personally gone out to buy these buns for her, giving them all away so selflessly and without hesitation. Even the most magnanimous person would feel uncomfortable. When Xiao Feng heard this, she cursed inwardly. Her sect master had always been lacking in worldly wisdom, but as the head of a clan, there was no one else in North Korea with a higher status than her. Naturally, she didn't need to consider these things. However, the situation was different now. Moreover, she could tell that this Xiao Yao was sincere. It would be very easy for her to embarrass him like this. As expected, when she carefully glanced over, Xiao Yao's expression darkened. But perhaps because of his upbringing, he didn't leave in a huff. She immediately waved her hand and said to her sect master, "This servant will go and see if the water is boiling." After saying this, she immediately left this troublesome place. If she stayed any longer, her sect master would definitely insist that she take the buns away. That way, Second Master Xiao would probably be even more unhappy. After Gong Sunxue said this, she saw Xiao Feng hastily run away. When she turned back, she saw that Xiao Yao's expression was even worse than before. She immediately realized that she had said the wrong thing. She was used to rewarding people, but she forgot that he was the one who had specially sold those buns to her. No matter how proud and arrogant she was usually, she knew that she had made a mistake now. Xiao Yao was already gloomy, but when he saw the flash of annoyance in her eyes, most of the anger in his heart dissipated. He rubbed his forehead. He clearly knew that she didn't know how to coax people, and she didn't do it on purpose. Forget it, forget it. He wouldn't pursue the matter. At this moment, Gong Sunxue unexpectedly opened her mouth. "These buns do taste pretty good." Xiao Yao already didn't expect to hear anything nice from her. When he suddenly heard this, his joy immediately overshadowed his previous gloominess. He spoke without thinking. "The next time I go out, I'll bring you some delicious food. I saw that snow pear cake shop that we passed by today was pretty good." After saying this, he regretted that he had eagerly tried to curry favor with her. But when he thought that girls should be treated well, he cast this thought aside and went to Java. Gong Sunxue didn't think that this guy would be so easy to coax. The uneasiness in her heart immediately dissipated, and she unexpectedly responded. This made Xiao Yao extremely happy, but he had to desperately suppress it. If his royal brother was here, he would definitely say that he couldn't keep his cool. However, his happiness still leaked out, which surprised Gong Sunxue. This person was really easy to satisfy. Suddenly, a sentence sounded by her ear. "Miss Sun, we can be considered friends, right? You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.